Rolling. I'm honored to be interviewed by Alex Jones, a truth seeker, fighting for justice in America.
Now he's charming me. He's getting me all smiley.
Aaron, when did you start to think something was wrong in the world, or start to find out about the whole banking cartel, the Federal Reserve System, the New World Order?
Well, that was a progression of events. I've always been a very independent person, always believed in individuality, and that we were put on this earth to be unique individuals to fulfill our God-given potential, and that the only way to fulfill your potential is to be free, to find out who you are, and to make your errors, to make mistakes. And as I grew up, I began to realize more and more the government was inhibiting me in things that I wanted to do. And what happened, I was very successful in the ladies' lingerie business. I worked for my dad. He had a small undergarment business, and I created the first ladies' bikini panties back in 1963, actually. And then I opened up a nightclub in Chicago called the Electric Theater that opened up the day Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
Right? And so the city of Chicago was in flames the day my club opened. Wow. And nobody came out to the club. And well, what happened was that that was the year of the Democratic Convention in Chicago in '68. And so my club became a hangout for the hippies, you know, and because they wanted to go to Chicago and protest what was going on. And I was having a concert at my club one night to raise money, and the police raided the nightclub, my club, for no reason at all. And I was standing outside in my office overlooking the street, and I saw all these paddy wagons pulling up in front of my club. And I was a 24-year-old kid. You know, I had no experience at all, really. So what are these paddy wagons doing here? And then I saw all these cops getting out of the paddy wagons coming into my club. I said, oh my God, they're raiding me. And so I ran down to the stage, and I got on the stage, and I stopped the band from playing. And I said to the people in the audience, we're being raided, you know, so sit down on the floor, cooperate, and plot your identification and cooperate with the police. And as I said that, two of the cops from behind threw me onto the floor and grabbed me and started dragging me out of the club. I'm going, you know, victory, victory, you know, I'm playing it for all it was worth at the time. I was a kid. And then I saw the fire department there, and the fire department was dumping garbage cans, the garbage all over the floor. And I thought to myself, well, why are they doing that? You know, very quickly as they were dragging me out. And I didn't quite understand it. So they threw me into the paddy wagon. As I got into the paddy wagon, one of the cops grabbed my testicles from behind and squeezed, and I went into the paddy wagon in gigantic pain. And the next person that came into the paddy wagon, the cop, as he was stepping in, the cops took the billy club, smashed him on the head with it, and just split his skull, you know, for no reason. I mean, there was nothing wrong.
So that was kind of your awakening.
That was my awakening. Like, what is going on? I thought this was America. So I initially blamed it on Chicago and made a daily thing. It was Chicago. And anyway, it was the headlines of the newspapers the next day. You know, there was my picture in the newspapers, the headlines, Electric Theater short-circuited, it was raided. And in the article, they went ahead and they said that the reason they raided the club was because the fire department came there and saw it was messy, full of garbage, and the hippies started attacking them, which was totally not true.
Those dirty hippies?
It was totally false. You know, it was a complete fabrication.
So they ran a false flag on you. They framed you.
Yeah, of course. You know, and I was in shock. I said, people lie like that? People actually do these things? I couldn't believe it. You know, it was an awakening to me. And I went on television. I told people on television that they lied. Nobody cared. Nobody cared what the truth was. You know, it was shocking to me. And then a week or 2 weeks later, I forget exactly what it was, two cops come to see me, a lieutenant and a sergeant, a captain and a sergeant. And they said, Mr. Russo, we're sorry if you got hurt that night at the club and the raid, but we're here to tell you that if you want to keep the club open, it's going to take $2,000 a month, and we're going to come see you once a month, and whenever we have to raid you, we're going to call you, you know, and we'll let you know we're going to come in tonight and raid you.
This was mafia.
Well, the police mafia,
Yeah.
you know. And actually, it was actually more interesting than that. They said, listen, there's the A plan, there's the B plan, and there's the super deluxe plan. And this one will cost you, each one will cost you that much money a month. Which one do you want?
What was the super deluxe?
That's the one I took. That was a $2,000 a month plan. And I took that plan, and I paid them $2,000 a month, and they left me alone. And whenever they were going to raid the club, they would come there, we're going to raid, we're going to have a phony raid tonight, you know, just to look good for the people in the neighborhood, you know.
So that was your first big education.
That was my education into corruption in government, you know, but I really thought that was basically Chicago. I didn't realize it was the whole country was like that. And so that was my wake-up call, that people lie and cheat and steal. And I thought everybody was always honest and nice and decent. And I had no idea about any of these things. Finally, one day they came to me and they said, look, we can't take your money anymore. I said, why, what's up? What's going on? I said, we have to close your club. There's elections coming, and the aldermen in the neighborhood don't want you open anymore. So we can't take your money. So I had to go to court and fight them, and they were trying to close the club. And then one night there was a fire, and the club never reopened again. The club just closed, and that was the end of the club. And they burned me down. And that was the end of my experience. And then I moved back to New York, where I met Bette Midler. And I ran into her at a little nightclub she was playing called the Improv, and I thought she was fabulous. And through a series of events, I began managing her. And as soon as I started managing her, her career took off like a rocket. You know, it was just fortuitous, I guess. And we became very, very successful. And through managing Bette, I started producing shows on Broadway where I won the Tony. And I produced a television show where I won the Emmy with Dustin Hoffman and Bette, you know, and then I produced The Rose for her, where she got Academy Award nominations. Wow. And then that led me to producing Trading Places, which everybody knows. You know.
I think it's the best Eddie Murphy movie.
Well, it's a good one. I don't know if it's the best, but it's a really good one. And I'm very proud I made that movie. And so in my mind, I feel as if I've made a classic comedy in Trading Places, a classic musical in The Rose, and a classic documentary in Freedom to Fascism. You know, so I'm very proud of my work that I've done as a filmmaker. The American people are living in a matrix. They don't understand the truth of how things are working in this country. You know, and let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The very fact is that if you ask 100 people on the street, what kind of government is America supposed to be? 99% of them will tell you a democracy. America is supposed to be a democracy. But that's a lie. That's an illusion. The word democracy is not written into the Constitution at one time. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. The Founding Fathers hated the idea of a democracy. They thought it was the worst form of government there is. And I agree with them. Because in a democracy, 51% of the people control 49% of the people. If you're part of the 49%, you're not free. America was founded as a constitutional republic. And in that constitutional republic that we have, 99% of the people can't take away the rights of 1%. You have your rights because you were born with them. You have God-given human rights that nobody can take away from you. The government, the majority, no matter who they are, I can't take away your rights. And that's what our founding fathers gave us. But the psychological operations that they do to us, they make us believe that we're a democracy and that majority rules, you see? And they want you to believe that. Because then they tell you this poll says this many want this and this many want that and this many want this, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Well, Hitler was elected.
Hitler was elected. Hitler did everything legally.
And in a constitutional republic, a minority is protected against a majority. Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin, to paraphrase, that said democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner?
Exactly. And then he also said, in a republic, the sheep would have a gun to protect himself, you know. And that's the truth. America's not a democracy, but you ask the most intelligent people what form of government America is supposed to be, they'll say a democracy. Because that's what they've been brainwashed. They've been psyoped into believing that. They believe that we're in Iraq. They believe we're in Iraq to promote democracy. The word democracy, you hear George Bush saying democracy means freedom. No, democracy equals New World Order. democracy equals slavery. The word democracy is not synonymous with freedom. It's the opposite of freedom. Democracy is the worst form of government you can have because it's majority rule. And the government can tell you exactly what they want to tell you to do because the majority wants it. I don't care what the majority wants. I live my life as I choose. And if I don't commit violence, theft, or fraud against another human being, I can live my life as I wish. That's my choice. And if I'm allowed to make mistakes, because when you make mistakes, you learn from them. You grow as a human being. We're put on this earth to become the best individuals we can be, to fulfill our God-given potential. Right? We're not here to put on this earth so that the government can tell us how to live our lives and what we must do. We put into these systems and these paradigms. No. The same thing in health. You know, if you're sick, you have to have a certain protocol. Nonsense. You know, be individuals. Think for yourself. Have critical thinking. You know? And so what's happened is that because they've taught everybody that we're a democracy, which is not true, now, so then in 1913, they bring the Federal Reserve System into being. Right? And now you have this Federal Reserve System, which then in 1913 got the right to create money for the government. When before that, the government created its own money. Now the government, when it needed money, had to borrow it from this private bank called the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank owned by individuals, incorporated in Delaware. And so what happens is now the government borrows money from them to fund the government. Then the government says, well, we have to pay these people interest. How are we going to pay them interest? Let's impose a tax on the labor of the American people, which never existed before, to pay the interest to the bankers.
In fact, in 1980, Ronald Reagan said not one red cent of your income tax money goes to run the country. It all goes to the Federal Reserve.
Well, it was the Grace Commission report that said that not one nickel goes to the infrastructure of the country. You know.
I guess Reagan quoted that. Too,
right. So. And so, but the point I'm trying to make is that by creating this Federal Reserve System, the government now became dependent on these private banks for money. And they started taxing us, you see. And so now what happens is that in 35, I believe it was, Social Security started. And they gave you Social Security cards, said not to be used for identification, the Social Security number right on the card, right? And through Social Security, they started deducting money out of your paycheck. That was the first time they were ever could take money out of your paycheck, because people agreed to it because they thought it was going to their retirement fund. And so then when they instituted the income tax again, they started taking money out of your paycheck because Social Security could do it. And then they could do it again. You see what I'm saying?
And so now they've even taken control of the tax payment itself. I mean, literally like you're a slave. They're taking it right there when you make it.
Exactly.
They don't even trust the public enough to go
send them
and
a
pay it
check.
themselves. You know?
Right. So they take it out automatically because they know people aren't going to want to pay it. So what's happened is that through the implementation of the Federal Reserve System, the government has become vested in these bankers, and they get their money from the bankers. And so then they impose a tax on us, which makes us more slaves, makes it more difficult for us to survive, right? Giving them more profits. And now what's happened is that through the Federal Reserve System, the bankers have pretty much taken control of our government. It doesn't matter Republican and Democrat anymore because they're both the same. Neither one of them are talking about shutting down the Federal Reserve System or stopping the payment of taxes, you know, or any of the big issues that face Americans, right? So I had a friend, Nick Rockefeller, okay, who was one of the Rockefeller family, and he, when I was running for governor in Nevada, he came to me, introduced himself to me through an attorney, and we became friends. We started talking about things, and I learned an awful lot from Mr. Rockefeller. And one of the things that we used to talk about was the ultimate plan of the banking industry, what they wanted to accomplish. And the goals of the banking industry, not just the Federal Reserve System, but the private banks in Germany and England, all over Italy, all over the world, they all work together. They're all central banks, and they're all part of the Communist Manifesto. You know, central banking is one of the major planks of the Communist Manifesto. We talk about America being a capitalistic country, but yet at the same time we have a central bank that plans everything for us, right? And the graduated income tax is another plank of the Communist Manifesto, right? So right there you have two major planks of the Communist Manifesto that have been brought in because of the Federal Reserve System, okay? So the ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one-world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is given me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what
everything,
you sell.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one-world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Eric, can you be specific about when you met Rockefeller, how it happened in these discussions?
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I had made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him, and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told him what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, you know, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we'd go after Chavez in Venezuela. And sure enough, later 9/11 happened. And I remember he was telling me how how you're going to see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places. And there's going to be this war on terror, which is no real enemy. And the whole thing is a giant hoax, you know, but it's a way for the government to take over the American people.
He told you it was going to be a hoax.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no question. He says, there's going to be war on terror. And he's just laughing. There's no... Who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened and then nothing's happened since then? Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to, can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people into subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this war, this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, you know, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago.
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on.
Right. an endless war on terror without any real enemy. That you can never, so you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy? It just goes on?
Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq. And people over there fighting, you know. But the war on terror, that's a joke, you know. And until we discover what really happened on 9/11 and who was responsible for 9/11, because that's where the war on terror emanates from. That's where it comes from. It was 9/11 that allowed this war on terror to begin. And until we get to the bottom root of 9/11, the truth of 9/11, we'll never know about the war on terror.
Aaron, you said that he was, and I think it's important, and I know this about the Rockefellers from Dr. Dennis Cuddy and many others who literally, you'll be 20 years old in a lunch line at college, and there's David Rockefeller. And here's here. I mean, they're experts at recruiting and getting what they call players, and that clearly he was. I mean, I want to make it specific and just get you to reiterate what you said last night about you got 30% of the vote. You were having an effect. You made mad as hell. They knew that you'd started the Constitution Party. Yeah. They knew that you were somebody who was taking action and getting things done. You'd already made some big films, had a lot of other successes.
Right.
So they were trying to recruit you, and didn't it come down to the point of, hey, we are here to recruit you, and don't worry, your chip's going to say, don't mess with us. You know, this guy's don't touch.
Yeah, yes, that did happen. I was definitely being recruited, but it's more subtle than that.
Well, in your words, just go through the process, and then what he said.
Well, what it is remember, we were friends, and we used to go to my house a lot. We'd have dinner, we'd talk. And he'd tell me about business investments that he'd get involved in, you know, or they would help me with this business investment or that business investment. And was I interested in joining the Council on Foreign Relations? You know, I would have to get a letter to join them, but was I interested in that? And, you know, just stuff, you know, leading you on. And I used to say to him that I never really did that because that wasn't where I was coming from. You know, as much as I like you, Nick, you know, your ways and my ways, we're on the opposite side of the fence. You know, I don't believe in enslaving people, you know, and
he would come back with, oh, I do? Or?
Well, it would be more like, you know.
It's better for them.
Well, it's more like, you know, how do I put it? It was like, what do you care about them? What do you care about those people? What difference does it make to you? Take care of your own life. Do the best you can for you and your family. What do the rest of the people mean to you? They don't mean anything to you. They're just serfs. They're just people. You know, it was just a lack of caring, you know, and that's just not who I was. It was just sort of like cold, you know. It was just like cold, you know. And I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? You know, what's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society, to have the bankers, the elite people, you know, the bankers and some governor controlling the world. And they said, all the people in the Council on Foreign Relations believe this way you do? He said, no. You know, most of them believe they're doing the right thing. A lot of them believe it's better off being socialistic. You know, we have to convince people that that socialism is really capitalism. Because America's becoming a socialist country. It's a communist country today. Well, one of the things they told me was that he was at the house one night, and we were talking, and he started laughing. He said, Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about? And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's about women having the right to work, getting equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, you know? And he started to laugh. He said, you're an idiot. And I said, why am I an idiot? He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. Let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded women's lib, you know? And we're the ones who got all over the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He said, there were two primary reasons. And they were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before women's lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. It breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those were the two primary reasons for women's lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. You know, when I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from when they created it, the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble venture.
Aaron, did you know that Gloria Steinem, in one of her own books, now admits the CIA funded Ms. Magazine?
No, I had no idea about that. No, I never heard that.
Yeah, we're going to...
CIA funded Ms. Magazine?
Funded Ms. Magazine with the stated goal of taxing women and breaking up the family.
No kidding. I never heard that. Well, Nick told me. I mean, I know it, but not because I know the CIA was involved in it.
Well, Gloria Steinem was proud of it. Oh, the CIA wanted to help women.
No kidding.
And so they funded it, yeah. And of course, it's divide and conquer.
Right,
and what they do is they focus in, obviously, on real problems. Women were getting shafted in many ways, but the elite wasn't planning to help them. They were planning to really shaft them and take men away from them. Look at what they did with black families. You only had about 10% illegitimacy 50 years ago in black communities, and now it's over 90%. And look at welfare. You were going to give you some money, but you can't have a man in the house.
Right.
And so that was further to degrade the family, totally destroyed. And now illegitimacy is over 50% in the general population.
Right. Well, see, the whole thing is these people control the money, so they make all the rules. You understand? And they put whatever rules they want into effect. And the truth is, America has really become a socialist, communistic country. And everybody says it's a capitalistic country. It's not a capitalistic country. You know, how could it be capitalistic when you have a central bank? That's the first. It can't be. You know,
it's a planned economy.
It's a planned economy. It's a phony. If they want to create prosperity, they just print dollars. They just make dollars or put digits into the economy, and then now you have prosperity. You don't have real prosperity. You don't have real manufacturing. You just have money being injected in. It's an infusion of credit,
which only makes the government go into more debt.
Into more debt. My friendship with Nick Rockefeller was one where we expressed ideas to each other and thoughts and philosophies, and he wanted me to become part of what they were doing, and for me to become a member of the CFR, and offered various business opportunities for me to get involved in, and for me to not take up the fight or the battle that I've been taking up in the past. You know, to drop that idea, because what was the point of my fighting for the people? I was a guy who was very successful in the movie business, and I saw the truth of what was happening. I tried to express it to the people, and rather than having me express it to the people, they wanted me to join their side because I was a mover and a shaker, and rather than me opposing them, to join them. It was real simple, and he tried to recruit me into that situation, and I didn't go for it.
Did he get angry when you didn't go for it?
No. And, you know, it's like, you know, I remember one time he said to me, you join us, so you have an ID card there, and, you know, you have a chip, and your chip will say KMA on it. And I said, what does KMA mean? He said, it means kiss my ass. And anybody stops you, a cop or whatever, and you show them your card or your chip, and they'll not leave you alone, because you're one of us. You know, and, you know, why are you fighting for the people for? What is that about? The people just, you know, they have to be ruled. They have to be, you know, the Constitution, what you're standing for, is only for a few people. It's only a few individuals that can live that way, you know. And we believe that it's best for society to be ruled by an elite people who control everything. And I said, I don't believe that. You know, I believe God put me on this earth to be the best person I could be, and put everybody on this earth to be the best they can be, not to be a slave and a sheep to you and these people. And I don't understand why you want to control everything. What is the need for that, you know? And I asked them, do all the people in the Council of Foreign Relations feel the same way you feel? He said, no, a lot of them think they're doing the right thing. They think that socialism is the best way to go. They think that, you know, that they're doing the right thing. But the people at the top, they all know the truth of what's happening. And that's what it is.
So it's compartmentalized within the elite structure as well.
Of course it is.
Pyramidal.
Of course it is. I mean, all the people that are in the CFR, was that 2,000-3,000 people have to go to, like Dan Rather. They don't know what's going on. They join the CFR because it's prestigious. They think it's good for business. It's good for this. You know, they don't know what's really happening. You know, the evil that comes out of it, that's emanating out of it. You know, and to me, about Rockefeller, because I was friends with him, we talked about it, and I can tell you firsthand.
What did Rockefeller tell you about the Federal Reserve and their family owning part of it?
Well, he said the New York Fed is the main controlling interest of the Federal Reserve System. They control the bulk of it. So the New York Fed is really the Federal Reserve System. Even though there's 12 different banks, it's run by the New York Fed. And the New York Fed is basically the Federal Reserve System. So who's ever running the New York Fed is where, and the families that control it, control the New York Fed. And they're the main engine behind the Federal Reserve System.
And that's a wing of the Bank of England.
Well, the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve are partners, you know, and the Bank of England is a private bank, and so is the Bundesbank in Germany, and the Bank of all the banks of the G8 countries are all private banks. They're private central banks. And look, what happened in Europe? Didn't Europe vote down the European Constitution?
Yes.
They're still doing it. Didn't they vote down the euro? They're still doing it. They don't care what the people vote. They do whatever they want to do. What we want doesn't matter anymore. It's their agenda, it's their plans that matter.
Isn't that prima facie evidence of a tyranny?
Well, there's no question we're in tyranny. There's no question we're living in a world where the American citizen is no longer a free individual human being to do the things that they wish to do. You know, we're slaves. We have to stop being scared. We have to stand up and do what's necessary to take back, to stop these bankers, these elite, this government full of lies, congressmen full of liars, you know, people destroying our borders, you know, creating a government. I mean, imagine this. Here you are in America, and they're combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, the North American Union, and the American people don't know anything about it. It's not even in the press. They'd rather talk about Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump calling each other names than discussing the fact that we're merging into one country. The press doesn't even report it.
Or that Paris Hilton doesn't wear underwear.
Yeah, Britney Spears. But I mean, who cares? I mean, the fact of the matter happens to be that tells you how controlled the media is. Here you are combining America, Canada, and Mexico into one country, and you don't see it in the press.
Unless maybe it's Lou Dobbs.
You don't see it in the press. You just don't see it.
It should be the top story everywhere.
Everywhere, and not a word about it, really. Why? That tells you there's the evidence that it's controlled. They don't want the American people to know what's going on. That's why they don't protect our borders. That's why we're losing our Constitution, the very document that secures our freedoms. Well, I think if you analyze the situation, and if you realize that since the Federal Reserve has come into being in 1913, illegally, without a constitutional amendment, by bribing a few senators during Christmas vacation, they turned over the most important power that the American government has, the creation and issuance of money, to a private bank. Through that private bank issuing money, they have destroyed this country. They have destroyed the purchasing power of the money in this country. They've created social programs that are destroying this country. Now, they've taken over our government, both Republicans and Democrats. There's no difference anymore between the two parties. They control both parties. It doesn't matter to them which one wins, because who's ever running for president will be someone they anoint, okay? Whether it's Hillary Clinton or John McCain running for president next year, they're going to be people that are going to do what they want them to do. And the fact of the matter happens to be that you can't win an election unless you have enough money to win. They make sure who gets the money. Okay, so through these bankers attempting to taking over America, knowing America was the freest nation in the world, it was necessary for them to take over America, take away our gun rights of freedom to bear arms, and create a country where we become slaves. Because once they took over America, the rest of the world becomes a lot easier for them. And so, by creating 9/11, an event to terrify the American people that were being attacked by terrorists, you create a world where there's an enemy that can never be pinpointed. You can never win the battle. It's a 100-year war. It's a never-ending war on terrorism, right? So you're always fighting this war. And through the war on terrorism, which is the first, the 9/11, which is the first lie, then you create the war on terrorism, which is the next lie. Then you create the war on Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, which is the next lie. And it's one lie to the next lie to the next lie. Now it's going to be Iran, the next lie, sending more troops and a surge into Iraq. It's just one thing leading to the other, and it's always with the event. It's always in the point of taking over more countries, more dominance. You know, making sure the American dollar, making sure the G8 stays in control of everything, and what they want to do is to control the American people, control the people of the world, put RFID chips in everybody. So everybody's a slave to these central banks.
Like that, they're not stupid. I mean, I've talked to people that don't. They know the truth. Why do you think they decided to join the evil?
That has to be in their hearts. I mean, I had the opportunity to do that, and then in my heart, I couldn't do it. So it has.
But I mean, how could you or I consciously be involved in something like putting AIDS virus in black Africans' vaccines? I mean, what the hell? I mean, it's like, we're not good guys either. I mean, I don't think I'm like some special perfect person. What the hell's wrong with this elite? I mean, what are they running around doing evil? I mean, they just run around continually doing evil.
I live in a world where institutions are dominant, not people. You know, the American, you know, we the people, by the people, for the people. Now it's we the institutions, by the institutions, for the institutions. People are secondary. It's all about corporations and institutions. And the Federal Reserve is the biggest institution in the world. You know, if you ask somebody what's the biggest corporation in the world, they'll say Google or Walmart or Exxon or something. But the biggest corporation in the world is the Federal Reserve System, right? And all the other corporations feed off the nipple of the Federal Reserve System.
Well, it's like the Monopoly game. The bank always wins. It has unlimited money. It's not the people playing on the board.
Exactly.
The bank owns the board, the box, the shelf it's sitting on. Take the bank away from the private bankers.
Exactly. You have to take the creation of money away from the private bankers, and you'll solve 95% of your problems.
Well, let me look at America. 10% growth rates every year like China's having right now. The U.S. had 10% growth rates until the Federal Reserve took over. And then if you look at that, it all starts really going downhill from there. Well, they destroyed the American worker. What they've done, here's what's happened. The Federal Reserve has created this massive inflation in America, which means that the American worker has to keep making more money to keep up with the cost of living. The more money they make to keep with the cost of living, the less competitive they become in the world economy. So now what happens is we have to pay our workers so much to keep up with the cost of living. Say, well, screw the American worker. Let's go overseas now and get the cheap labor. But really, that's a war being waged against the middle class.
Of course
the bankers print the money. Really, this is a war being waged against the middle class. The bankers print the money. Everything they're doing is about destroying any private pools of wealth or independence.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, because of the inflation that they've created, they've now allowed other countries to outcompete us. You see, because other countries don't have to pay as much money as we have to pay here to our workers to survive.
Yes.
So now we're not competitive anymore. So we've lost our manufacturing base. We've lost our competitive. In the old days, the American worker, you wanted to buy everything American. You wouldn't buy anything from Japan. This was cheap crap.
And what does that leave us? It leaves America this military force, and so the elite's giving us a deal. We'll continue to build up your military and give you homeland security jobs, shift your economy over to being the bulldog enforcer of the New World Order.
Exactly.
You can either do, and by controlling the economy, they force everybody into that position.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. And there's no more manufacturing here. We're a service economy. We do nothing. We provide nothing. We provide nothing to the rest of the world anymore.
Wait a second, Hartman. I just thought of something. If I got this money from the bank, and the bank got it from the Federal Reserve dump trucks,
Go on.
then where does the Federal Reserve get their money?
Real nice time, ladies. Real nice. Now, excuse me while I borrow these.
Say, Hartman, why am I wearing a burglar bikini top?
Because no one is allowed inside the Fed. Not you, not me, no American citizen, no duly elected member of our Congress, not the Supreme Court.
Not the Supreme Court?
Not the Supreme Court, not the Justice Department, not the CIA, DIA, FBI, ATF, ATE, NBC, not even GOD.
Well, how come the government isn't allowed inside its own building?
Government? The Fed is a private bank owned by private stockholders. Do not let the name Federal fool you. This place is about as Federal Express.
A private bank? But private?
Shh. Best to keep your voice down, pal.
This is Ethan, Federal Reserve.
Hey, Eth, Bill here, First National.
Hi there, Bill. How are you?
Good, good. We're running a little low on money.
No problem. How much you need?
Oh, how does 20 million sound? What?
Excellent. We'll ship it over first thing tomorrow.
Wait, he can just call up the Fed and ask for more money and they give him whatever they want?
No, pal. The Fed don't give the banks money. The Fed loans the banks money. The banks have to pay it back with interest. Now, come on, time to go.
Wait. I still don't understand. Where does the Fed get their money? I mean, if they're a private bank. You said they're a private bank, right? Okay, so who puts money into the Fed bank?
This is Mel, United States Mint.
Hi, ML. First National needs another 20 millis.
We're already running the presses full steam here, Ethan.
Gotta keep making loans. Gotta keep the money flowing.
All right, you're the Fed. Whatever you guys say. 20 million more by morning.
But I don't get it. What's so wrong about the Fed printing money?
Because it's unconstitutional, pal. Our Treasury is supposed to create our money, but now the Fed controls the printing of America's money. Nobody gets a friggin' dollar that the Fed didn't print. So, they print the money, then they loan it to the government, then they charge the government interest, then the government taxes you to pay for it. Wake up, pal! Because, pal, an evil invention was born. Man discovered how to turn worthless paper into gold. Thus was invented the ultimate machine to steal real money and enslave all the nations on Earth. It's alive! And the goldsmith's discovery has been kept a closely guarded secret. It was never intended for you to see. This discovery is called fractional reserve banking. In the wrong hands, it's more powerful than the nuclear bomb in its ability to completely and utterly destroy a nation who is subjected to its perversion. No. It is time we stop this evil secret and the men behind it. You're being ridiculous. Before America is destroyed forever. Believe it, Pat. No. I just want my dog back. Damn it. That's it. I give up. Let them live in chains. No, Hardman. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Thomas Jefferson? Mr. President, how do I get him to understand? As we did, son, remain vigilant. Too many have hidden the truth, and the light of our liberty dims with every passing day. Quickly, take my horse. Show him. Wait, show me what? Where are we going? Stallion of Liberty! Brought on the hoary wind! Oh, where are we? Battle of Waterloo! Hold on, we gotta get through! A money machine! There it is!
Hey, is that the same people?
Rich bankermen in Germany flying under the banner of the Red Shield. They finance both sides of the war. We must hurry! That's him, the Red Shield courier! Shoot him!
No, I'm not shooting anyone.
Damn it, Pop.
What?
He beat everyone back with the news of the war and told England that Napoleon won. The Red Shield backers in London pretended that England was doomed and started selling their English stocks. The English went into a selling frenzy to get rid of worthless English money.
But the English won, right?
Of course they won. But it was a trick by Red Shield. They waited until the stocks plummeted to pennies and then bought England back for nearly nothing.
What? They did that? How?
When the English leaders found out, they had no choice but to give themselves over to the Red Shield. Their money was gone and they were slaves to the Red Shield war debt. Since that time, the English have been paying their national taxes directly to the Red Shield private bankers. The people have no idea. But the bankers bragged about what they did to us, laughing at us all the way to the bank.
Why, it's the best business I've ever done. If I can control a nation's wealth, I care not who makes its laws.
Oh, is this what Jefferson wanted to show me?
No, look. They're in America, too? The Red Shield banks are here, Pyle. Seeking a way to conquer our American dream. The dream you have, Pyle. The dream of free men. But the bankers, greedy for more power and wealth, were concocting their most ambitious plan yet to once and for all take control of the finances of the United States.
Silence!
Supreme Master Leader, I didn't know you were gonna be here.
I'm not. Neither are you, dumbass.
Oh yeah, right. He's so smart.
None of you shall run the bank. We have failed in the past because of openness. This time, the key to success is secrecy. The people must believe that they run the bank.
Yes, brilliant! A sneak attack. What's the plan?
We first create panic, then we show them the solution. With our man in office and well-planned timing, we will have our central bank. And so the people think it is theirs. We shall christen it Federal. The Federal Reserve.
The Fed now has the exclusive power to print America's money. They loan this money to our banks and our government at interest, putting immediate debt on our own money, printing more and more, so each dollar they print becomes worth less than the one before. Merry Christmas. What in the hell is that? That pile is how our government now must pay back these debts to the Fed. Your taxes did not go to your government. They don't? It's the greatest theft in human history. The IRS and the Fed's inflation work together, pile. They aren't just taxing gain, they are taxing their inflation. You are no richer than you were in 1955. Now, does that sound fair or American to you?
Yeah, but I mean, who doesn't hate taxes? I hate the IRS anyway.
Higher. The higher they make the inflation, the more your money they take. It's thievery. You're not paying taxes on any more. You are paying taxes on the same. And now, you have less. They take our property away right in front of our eyes, just like Thomas Jefferson said. This is the last president to stand up to the Fed. You must see. On June 4, 1963, President Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110. This executive order empowered the U.S. Treasury to issue real money without the Fed. It would have worked. Kennedy's plan to dismantle the Federal Reserve machine had begun. 6 months later, John F. Kennedy went to Dallas and never returned.
No way. No way they could do that.
The new president, Lyndon Johnson, threw out Kennedy's order. And since JFK, no president has dared confront the secret powers behind the Federal Reserve. They consolidate bigger and bigger banks, print more and more money, accountable to no one, decimating our nation's wealth for the benefit of a few.
Why? Why do this? If they hurt us, it hurts the global bankers too.
No, pile. They are protected. They are too big to fail.
President John F. Kennedy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. 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 No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322. You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
And we'll be watching. Be safe on the campaign trail. John Kerry, thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Senator Clinton, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Can I ask you a quick question while you signed that? It was reported in June of 2006. You attended a meeting in Ottawa, Canada, the Bilderberg Group. Can you comment on that? What's going on at the Bilderberg meeting, and what do you guys talk about up there?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do. I was reported you were up there, and people saw you up there. I just want to know what you guys talk about and meet about up there.
Sir, I don't know.
Why are they such top secret meetings?
I have no idea what you're talking
Your
about.
husband went to a Bilderberg meeting too. I'm just wondering. I'm not being rude or anything.
No,
I just want to know what happens at these meetings.
Well, since I wasn't there, I have no idea.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Howard. There you go.
Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Really?
That's right.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open. We got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
But it's a lot of big public officials going in there. Don't we deserve to know?
You took it. I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film. But if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Really?
I'm sorry. You took an understanding when you went in there that you would not do that film. And did you have an understanding when you went in there?
No.
Did you crash it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it has no trespassing signs there too, doesn't it?
No, they put them after.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I've been there before. I know what the circumstances are, and I'm sorry you violated the understanding. But that was not a gentlemanly thing to do.
Well, what about the ritual? Is the ritual gentlemanly?
Sir, everything. I don't owe you this comment. This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you. Think about it. Let's leave your damn business.
Oh.
The Council on Foreign Relations, I don't know if I'm an official member. I've spoken of it.
Monsanto. Przez 20 lat podróżowałam po świecie i wszędzie ludzie mówili o tej amerykańskiej firmie. Nie zawsze słyszałam pozytywne opinie. Przez kilka miesięcy szukałam informacji w internecie, żeby zdobyć wszystkie elementy układanki. Na swojej stronie internetowej Monsanto przedstawia się jako firma pomagająca rolnikom na całym świecie produkować zdrowszą żywność, jednocześnie ograniczając negatywny wpływ rolnictwa na środowisko. Sztandarowym produktem spółki jest Roundup, od 30 lat najlepiej sprzedający się herbicyd na świecie. Monsanto jest też światowym liderem w biotechnologii. Firma dostarcza 90% modyfikowanych genetycznie odmian GMO na całym świecie. Modyfikacja miała na celu wytworzyć odporność na Roundup. Stąd nazwa Roundup Ready, gotowy na Roundup. Spółka powstała w 1901 roku w St. Louis. Nie zawsze zajmowała się rolnictwem. Na początku była jedną z największych firm branży chemicznej. Chemia pracuje dla was. Monsanto też pracuje dla was. Monsanto, gdzie kreatywna chemia sprawia cuda. Cuda, o których mowa w reklamie, wywołały sporo kontrowersji. Fitotoksyczna mieszanka pomarańczowa, aspartam, bydlęcy hormon wzrostu oraz PCB, polichlorowane bifenyle. Przez ponad 50 lat perłą w koronie firmy były syntetyczne oleje używane na całym świecie w układach chłodzących i smarujących. W internecie jest dużo artykułów o wpływie PCB na zdrowie. David Carpenter jest specjalistą w tej dziedzinie. Przeprowadzał badania wśród mieszkańców Aniston. Wszyscy mamy polichlorowane bifenyle w organizmie, podobnie jak pingwiny czy niedźwiedzie polarne. Dawniej tylko w kilku zakładach dochodziło do uwalniania tych związków. Teraz są już w powietrzu i wodzie. Cały świat jest nimi skażony. Kontakt z PCB powoduje wiele chorób. Wszyscy wiedzą o raku. Ciężarne kobiety, które mają podwyższony wskaźnik PCB, urodzą dzieci z niższym ilorazem inteligencji. 29,6. PCB upośledzają funkcjonowanie tarczycy. 1800. Zakłócają działanie hormonów płciowych. Co z Roundupem, najpopularniejszym środkiem chwastobójczym? Co to jest? To nazwa marki, jaką firma nadała glifosfatowi, tak zwanemu nieselektywnemu czy totalnemu herbicydowi, który niszczy wszystkie rośliny. Jest w sprzedaży od 1974 roku, a sukces zawdzięcza zapewnieniom, że jest biodegradowalny i korzystny dla środowiska. Sędziowie uznali, że słowa biodegradowalny, gleba pozostaje nieskażona i szanuje środowisko były fałszywą reklamą. Zwłaszcza, że według testów przeprowadzonych przez samą firmę tylko 2% ich produktów uległo rozkładowi po 28 dniach. Dlatego firma usunęła z opakowań napis biodegradowalny. Ale to nie wszystko. Badania naukowe wykazały, że Roundup jest wysoce toksyczny. Według badań profesora Belle powoduje zakłócenia procesu podziału komórkowego. Byliśmy zaskoczeni, że Roundup ma wpływ na podział komórek. Stwierdziliśmy, że wpływa na najważniejsze procesy. Nie bezpośrednio na mechanizm podziału, ale na to, co go kontroluje. Najpierw trzeba zrozumieć, jak komórki stają się komórkami nowotworowymi. Na początku wszystkie są normalne, ale w pewnym momencie dochodzi do ich modyfikacji, która powoduje, że z genetycznego punktu widzenia stają się niestabilne. To pierwsza nieprawidłowość wykryta w związku z Roundupem. Wysnuliśmy wniosek, że Roundup prowokuje fazy wstępne, prowadzące potem do raka. Z ostrożności nie twierdziliśmy, że wywołuje raka, bo może dojdzie do tego za 30-40 lat. Wiedzieliśmy, że to odkrycie ma duże znaczenie dla użytkowników produktu. Przetestowane dawki były znacznie mniejsze od przeciętnie stosowanych przez rolników. Uznaliśmy, że musimy jak najszybciej poinformować społeczeństwo o zagrożeniach. Pomyślałem, iż najlepiej poinformować władze, ale przeżyłem szok. Polecono mi, a raczej zakazano informowania o tym fakcie, bo wiązało się to z GMO, genetycznie modyfikowanymi organizmami. Niesłychane. Toksyczność Roundupu utajniono, żeby chronić rozwój GMO. Działa. Jak rośliny mogą przetrwać oprysk Roundupem? Oto komórka nasiona soi. Jądro komórki zawiera DNA z zakodowaną strukturą genetyczną rośliny. By ją zmodyfikować, Monsanto przełamało ograniczenia odmiany, wszczepiając gen odporności na Roundup pozyskany z bakterii. Gen nanosi się na mikroskopijne cząsteczki złota, które następnie wstrzeliwuje się do ziarna soi specjalnym działem genetycznym. Gen dostaje się do łańcucha DNA i tworzy białko dające roślinie odporność na Roundup. Rozpylony na uprawy herbicyd zabija wszystkie rośliny, pozostawiając soję. Zajmowałem stanowisko związane z regulacjami w zakresie biotechnologii. Szybko odkryłem, że zdaniem sektora rolnictwa i administracji USA, jeśli nie wydaje się pozwoleń na produkty biotechnologiczne czy wprowadzanie modyfikowanych odmian, jest się antynaukowym przeciwnikiem rozwoju. W sektorze rolniczym było wiele osób, które nie chciały aż tylu analiz, ile należałoby wykonać, bo za dużo zainwestowali w te produkty. Gdy zostałem sekretarzem do spraw rolnictwa, spotykałem się z naciskami, żeby nie drążyć tej kwestii zbyt głęboko. Nawet gdy mówiłem o tym w ramach administracji Clintona, obrywałem nie tylko od ludzi z sektora rolniczego, ale też od niektórych kolegów. Kiedyś powiedziałem, że potrzebujemy bardziej przemyślanych przepisów w sprawie GMO. Ludzie odpowiedzialni za handel byli niezadowoleni i zapytali, jak ktoś z rolnictwa może kwestionować ich regulacje. Rząd postanowił nie tworzyć nowych regulacji, uznając, że istniejące przepisy umożliwiają instytucjom rządowym skuteczne działanie w zakresie nowych technologii. Czyli Biały Dom zwrócił się do agencji, by nie tworzyła odrębnych regulacji prawnych dla organizmów modyfikowanych. Czy to była decyzja polityczna? Tak. I nie dotyczyła tylko żywności, ale wszystkich produktów biotechnologicznych. Niewiarygodne. Mariański przyznaje, że przepisy dotyczące GMO opierały się na polityce, a nie na nauce. Agencja doszła do wniosku, że genetycznie zmodyfikowana roślina jest równa zwykłej. Regułę zasadniczej równoważności przyjęto na świecie. To główny temat debaty między zwolennikami a przeciwnikami GMO. Przyczyną istnienia w Stanach odmian modyfikowanych jest oszustwo dokonane przez FDA. Agencja stwierdziła, że ta żywność niczym się nie różni. Użyto określenia zasadniczo równoważne, potem użyli sformułowania nie różniące się znacząco czy całkowicie. Tak powstało stwierdzenie ogólnie uznane za bezpieczne, czyli GRAS. Gdy jakiś produkt ma być uznany za bezpieczny, zwykle należy opublikować szereg badań i uzyskać przeważającą jednomyślność wśród naukowców. Przy odmianach modyfikowanych tego nie było. Gdybyśmy w Waszyngtonie wybrali się wieczorem na drinka do baru, gdzie spotykają się lobbyści, śmialiby się nam w nos, bo wiedzą, że reguła zasadniczej równoważności to kpina. Był to sposób na umożliwienie firmom, a zwłaszcza Monsanto, szybkiego wprowadzenia produktów przy jak najmniejszej ingerencji władz i wyraźnie okazywali, na czym im zależy. Nigdy nie spotkałem się z sytuacją, żeby jedna firma miała tak duży wpływ na organy władzy na najwyższym szczeblu, jak Monsanto z polityką GMO.
As the example of Monsanto with its GM food policy in the government.
Oto ujęcia z wizyty George'a Busha seniora w laboratorium Monsanto 9 lat przed wprowadzeniem soi Roundup Ready. Chciałbym panu pokazać kilka etapów, które prowadzą do przeniesienia genów z jednego organizmu do drugiego. Będzie pan wykonywał precyzyjne czynności, które wykonujemy w laboratorium, pobierając DNA, tnąc je na fragmenty, mieszając i ponownie łącząc. W probówce jest DNA pobrane od bakterii. Wygląda tak samo, czy pochodzi od roślin, czy zwierząt. Rozumiem. To pozwoli wam na co? Wzmocnić rośliny? Uodpornić je? W tym wypadku uodpornić na herbicyd. Rozumiem. Mamy świetny herbicyd. Gdy Bush zwiedzał firmę, był wiceprezydentem w administracji Ronalda Reagana. Jej hasłem była deregulacja mająca na celu pobudzenie przemysłu poprzez eliminację biurokratycznych przeszkód, jak badania pod kątem bezpieczeństwa zdrowotnego i ekologii, które stanowiły problem dla Monsanto. Otrzymaliśmy żądanie od Departamentu Rolnictwa, żeby przeprowadzić w tym roku badania na farmie w Illinois. To koszmar. Koty rosną i nic się nie dzieje. Nie skarżymy się na Departament Rolnictwa, bo mają swoje procedury. Muszą się upewnić, że uważnie podchodzą do nowości. Ale jeśli nie dostaniemy pozwolenia do września, zaczniemy mówić inaczej. Zadzwońcie do mnie, zajmiemy się ograniczeniem kontroli. W 1988, gdy Bush senior objął prezydenturę USA, Dan Quayle został wiceprezydentem. 4 lata później przedstawił politykę USA w sprawie organizmów modyfikowanych dokładnie w takiej postaci, jak chciała firma Monsanto. Podejmujemy te działania w ramach drugiej fazy procesu znoszenia kontroli. Stany Zjednoczone są światowym liderem w zakresie biotechnologii i chcemy, żeby tak zostało. W 1991 roku branża osiągnęła wartość 4 miliardów dolarów. Do roku 2000 powinna osiągnąć poziom 50 miliardów, o ile nie wprowadzimy niepotrzebnych regulacji. Myśli pan, że to był spisek? Spisek to mocne słowo. Z punktu widzenia korporacji było to genialne przejęcie. Michael Taylor został deputowanym komisarzem agencji FDA akurat wtedy, gdy mieli ustalać nową politykę. Firma Monsanto świetnie wszystko rozegrała zarówno od strony polityki, jak i regulacji prawnych. Odegrali zasadniczą rolę w dopuszczeniu bydlęcego hormonu wzrostu, a także w kształtowaniu podejścia do inżynierii genetycznej. Michael Hansen wspomniał o bydlęcym hormonie wzrostu. Co to takiego? To transgeniczny hormon wstrzykiwany krowom, zwiększający produkcję mleka o 20%. Wywołał ostrą krytykę. Hormon zagraża naszemu zdrowiu. Śmiertelna trucizna. Manipulacja. RBGH to syntetyczny bydlęcy hormon wzrostu, który firma Monsanto zaczęła sprzedawać hodowcom w 1994 pod nazwą Posilac. W W 1995 roku firma Monsanto wystąpiła do FDA o dopuszczenie posilaku na rynek. Eksperci weterynaryjni agencji przejrzeli wyniki badań przeprowadzonych na eksperymentalnych stadach. Weterynarzem odpowiedzialnym za analizę był Richard Burroughs. W wywiadzie stwierdził, że urzędnicy agencji ukrywali dane i nimi manipulowali. W dostarczonych danych brakowało wielu kwestii istotnych w mleczarstwie. Nie zadali kluczowych pytań o mastitis, zapalenie gruczołu mlekowego, ani o problemy z reprodukcją. Gdy nadeszły dane i tego brakowało, kazałem uzupełnić informacje. To opóźniło sprawę o jakieś 2–3 lata. Informował pan agencję o swoich obawach? Odstawili mnie na boczny tor. Mój szef wciągnął do sprawy bliższych mu ludzi. Dostawałem coraz mniej danych. Nawet nie docierały do mnie wyniki, o które prosiłem, jak badania w związku z mastitis. Uznali, że skoro stoję im na drodze, trzeba mnie usunąć. Pewnego dnia zostałem zwolniony. Doprowadzili mnie do drzwi i byłem skończony. Na przykład jajniki krów dostających sztuczny hormon były o 34%, 42% i 44% większe od normy. Inne ze skradzionych dokumentów ujawniają, że u tych zwierząt występowały poważne kłopoty z reprodukcją. Wyniki są niepodważalne. Dostarczyliśmy surowe dane, dane sumaryczne i porównawcze pochodzące z niezależnych badań. Wszystkie służby, które badały bydlęcą somatotropinę, uznały, że jest całkowicie bezpieczna. Według Monsanto hormon jest nie tylko bezpieczny, ale nawet korzystny dla konsumentów. Skład chemiczny mleka nie ulega zmianie w wyniku stosowania posilaku. Sposób produkcji i właściwości smakowe pozostają niezmienione. To zwykłe kłamstwo. To całkiem inny produkt. I to pod wieloma względami. Przede wszystkim wysoki wskaźnik zapalenia gruczołów u krów oznacza ropę w mleku. I obecność antybiotyków podawanych chorym krowom. Poza tym, co też jest niezwykle istotne, wzrost poziomu IGF-1, insulinopodobnego czynnika wzrostu 1. Przeprowadzono około 60 badań wiążących podwyższony poziom IGF-1 z częstszym występowaniem raka piersi, okrężnicy i prostaty. Aż trudno w to uwierzyć. Środek z bydlęcym hormonem to pierwsze poważniejsze zastosowanie biotechnologii w produkcji żywności. Monsanto to potężna korporacja z licznymi powiązaniami z władzami. Ustawy administracji federalnej cechował pogląd, że biotechnologia jest tak ważna, iż nie można pozwolić, by zaszkodziło jej kilka wątpliwości co do bezpieczeństwa krów lub ludzi. Wygląda na to, że FDA wyraziła zgodę, bo wiele osób pracujących dla Monsanto przeszło do agencji i przekonało innych urzędników. To jak drzwi obrotowe czy karuzela stanowisk, jak podwójna spirala, drzwi obrotowe. Coś takiego działa nie tylko w rolnictwie, ale w wielu innych sektorach. Donald Rumsfeld był dyrektorem Serla, firmy zależnej od Monsanto. Były ambasador handlu USA Mickey Cantor trafił do zarządu Monsanto. Sędzia Sądu Najwyższego Clarence Thomas pracował dla Monsanto. Firma Monsanto, drzwi obrotowe. Drobny przykład z 1999. Linda Fisher przeszła z Agencji Ochrony Środowiska do Monsanto, Michael Friedman przeszedł z FDA do Monsanto. Marcia Hale i Josh King przeszli z Białego Domu do Monsanto. Margaret Miller przeszła z Monsanto do FDA. William Ruckelshaus przeszedł z Agencji Ochrony Środowiska do Monsanto. Nie zapominajmy o Michaelu Taylorze, który kilkakrotnie przechodził tam i z powrotem. Prawnik Steven Drucker reprezentuje koalicję stowarzyszeń non-profit. Pozwał agencję do sądu i zmusił do ujawnienia wewnętrznych dokumentów na temat GMO. Otrzymaliśmy ponad 44 000 stron dokumentów FDA, które ujawniły, że agencja okłamywała świat co najmniej od 1992 roku. I nadal kłamie, twierdząc, że społeczność naukowa zasadniczo się zgadza, że modyfikowana żywność jest równie bezpieczna jak produkty tradycyjne i że ma dane potwierdzające ten konsensus. Oba te stwierdzenia są kłamliwe. Arpad Pusztaj, światowej sławy naukowiec, stracił pracę, gdy w 1998 ostrzegł przed modyfikowaną żywnością. Pracował w Instytucie Badawczym w Szkocji. Na zlecenie Ministerstwa Rolnictwa badał genetycznie modyfikowane ziemniaki. Budżet przekraczał 2 miliony euro. 30-osobowy zespół badaczy miał przygotować Wielką Brytanię na GMO. Byliśmy entuzjastycznie nastawieni. Ministerstwo uważało, że jeśli przeprowadzimy dogłębne badania, będzie to dobry początek dla GMO. Gdy je wprowadzą, powiedzą, że najlepsze laboratorium w Europie je sprawdziło i stwierdziło, że są w porządku. Nutritional laboratory had looked at them and they found them all right. Genetycznie zmodyfikowane ziemniaki przebadano na szczurach. Pojawiły się dwojakie efekty. Po pierwsze, powodowały zmiany proliferacyjne jeli, a to niedobrze. Nie twierdzę wprost, że były rakotwórcze, ale mogły sprzyjać rozwojowi wywołanego chemicznie guza. Kolejna sprawa. Uruchamiał się system odpornościowy i nie wiedzieliśmy, czy to dobrze, czy źle. Organizm rozpoznawał modyfikowane ziemniaki jako obce. Byliśmy pewni, że problem powoduje proces wszczepiania genu, a nie sam transgen. Gdy sprawdzaliśmy wyizolowany transgen, nawet przy 800-krotnym stężeniu, nie powodował uszkodzeń. To bardzo ważna sprawa, bo amerykańskiej agencji do spraw żywności i leków chodziło o technologię. Nasza publikacja stanowiła potwierdzenie, że to nie transgen powoduje problemy, ale sama technologia. The transgene, which was the problem, but it was the technology. Prawie 8 lat temu byłem na przyjęciu, a obok mnie siedział ktoś z Instytutu Rowetta. Powiedziałem, że to straszne, co się stało z Arpadem. On zapytał, czy wiedziałem, że 2 razy dzwoniono z Downing Street do dyrektora. But 2 phone calls from Downing Street to the director. Wtedy pojąłem, co się dzieje. Chodziło o międzynarodowe powiązania i naciskano na rząd Blaira, żeby powstrzymał badania, bo Amerykanie uznali je za szkodliwe dla przemysłu biotechnologicznego. Po 10 latach na rynku ziarna soi Roundup Ready stanowią w USA 90% upraw tej rośliny. 70% żywności w amerykańskich sklepach zawiera składniki modyfikowane. Konsumenci nie mogą dokonać świadomego wyboru, bo zakazano znakowania produktów jako genetycznie modyfikowanych. To skutki przyjęcia reguły zasadniczej równoważności. Jedno jest pewne. Dzięki ograniczonym badaniom modyfikowane genetycznie produkty Monsanto zalały świat, zwłaszcza obie Ameryki, Azję i Australię. Po zaledwie 10 latach uprawy transgeniczne zajmują ponad 100 milionów hektarów. 70% jest odporna na Roundup, a 30% zmodyfikowano, by wytwarzały środek owadobójczy zawierający hybrydy genu BT. Rolnicy naprawdę się boją? Ależ tak. Nie obronimy się przed ludźmi Monsanto. Stworzyli cały dział mający zniszczyć farmerów. Dlatego ludzie się boją. Obawia się pan, że sąsiedzi mogą na pana donieść? Tak. Wystarczy zadzwonić pod 1-800 Monsanto. Przepraszam, 1-800 Roundup. Zachęcali farmerów do dzwonienia na ten darmowy numer i donoszenia na sąsiadów. Po co firma to robi? Chcą sprawować kontrolę nad nasionami. Chcą kontrolować nasiona i życie. Mówimy o podstawowym produkcie spożywczym. Firma chce przejąć na własność całą żywność. W latach 1995-2005 Monsanto przejęło ponad 50 firm nasienniczych na całym świecie. Firmy produkowały nasiona kukurydzy, bawełny, pszenicy i soi, a także pomidorów, ziemniaków i sorgo. Ludzie obawiają się monopolu Monsanto, który w perspektywie oznacza zniszczenie wszystkich nietransgenicznych odmian. Indie są trzecim co do wielkości producentem bawełny. W 1999 Monsanto wykupiło Mexico, wiodącą firmę nasienniczą w kraju. 2 lata później rząd indyjski zezwolił na sprzedaż nasion bawełny BT pod nazwą handlową Volgard. To genetycznie modyfikowana bawełna wytwarzająca środek owadobójczy przeciwko pasożytowi słonecznicy orężówce. Czemu tylu rolników kupuje nasiona BT? Bo mają coraz mniej możliwości. Nawet gdyby rolnik chciał uprawiać bawełnę inną niż BT, nie znajdzie jej na rynku. Dziś w Indiach Monsanto kontroluje prawie cały rynek nasion bawełny. Faktyczny monopol zmusza rolników do kupowania transgenicznych nasion po cenach 4-krotnie wyższych od odmian konwencjonalnych. Drobni rolnicy pożyczają pieniądze, godząc się na wysokie odsetki. Kiepskie plony oznaczają bankructwo. To błędne koło pustoszące indyjskie wioski. Oto pas ryżowy regionu Vidarbha. Nie ma tam prawie samobójstw. A to obszary uprawy bawełny. Wprowadzenie bawełny BT spowodowało 600 samobójstw od lipca 2005 do lipca 2006. W następnym roku przez 6 miesięcy 682 samobójstwa. To katastrofa. Całkowita katastrofa. Wszystkie technologie, czy to modyfikacja genetyczna, czy biotechnologia, całkowicie uzależniają rolników od rynku. Muszą płacić więcej za nasiona i za nawożenie. Twierdzenie, że ta odmiana nie wymaga oprysków, też jest kłamstwem. Ich prawdziwym celem jest patentowanie. Jeśli popatrzymy na prace badawcze Monsanto, obecnie testują 20 gatunków z wszczepionym genem BT. Zajmują się wszystkim. Gorczycą, ochrą, bakłażanami, ryżem, kalafiorami. Gdy doprowadzą do ustanowienia prawa, że nasiona mogą być ich własnością i mogą pobierać za nie opłaty, będziemy od nich całkowicie zależni, jeśli chodzi o materiał siewny. Jeśli będą kontrolować nasiona, będą też kontrolować pożywienie. To ich strategia. Żywność jest potężniejsza od broni. To najlepsza metoda kontrolowania ludzkości.
On leaving Microsoft, Bill Gates bought $23 million of Monsanto shares. Globally, he now promotes GMOs and a vaccines collection he calls the solution for the world. Gates has been recorded explaining this solution is actually to cut the world's population.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. The density in the poor areas is greater than they can grow the food. The benefits there in terms of reducing the population growth.
The only vaccines that reduce the population, notes the site Prison Planet, are ones that sterilize people. The BBC says his foundation's funding big sterilization programs such as this one that blasts men's scrotums with ultrasound to damage the sperm. Here Gates actually calls for the so-called death panels to decide whether folks should live or whether, as he puts it, they have no benefit whatsoever.
And a lack of willingness to say, you know, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better to see which ones actually have no benefit whatsoever? But that's called the death panel. And you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Anthony Gates actually brags he's doing God's work. The boss of Goldman Sachs said exactly the same thing while sending millions into starvation. What the heck is going on?
His father was one of the main grandfathers of the whole entire eugenics movement here inside the United States. And it's still going strong today.
My dad was head of Planned Parenthood. And it was very controversial.
And Bill Gates is here once again pushing the GMOs and everything else that is also reducing the population, because that's what he says. If we do a good enough job with vaccinations and everything, we'll be able to reduce the population. The polio vaccines now are the #1 cause of polio. There's no question that Bill Gates is not doing God's work. And if he is doing God's work, I would ask, which God?
Yeah, how have we moved to open plans to take away our water, hoarding food, and population controls?
They speak to us as if we are peon peasants in medieval times, and they are the kings, queens, and nobles. Why did they target the low-income portions?
Yeah, May 25th, over 2 million people across 48 states and 6 continents marched against Monsanto. What do you make of the company refusing to talk to us because we covered the march?
They can't stand up to the facts. They wouldn't come on this show. I would love to debate a Monsanto employee and show them that email. I mean, what would they say? They have nothing. They go into these poor communities and then, of course, reduced yields. So what happens to these farmers? They end up killing themselves by drinking the biopesticides that Monsanto gave them. So every 30 minutes, while we've been talking, someone has killed themselves.
Execs now boast about infertility from GMOs, hoard food, and say water shouldn't be a human right. Monsanto has publicly stated it wants to control 100% of the world's food supply. The government isn't stopping them, so who will? This is The Truth Seeker.
Could a strange substance found by a southwest Arkansas man be part of a government test? Well, that's the question at the heart of a phenomenon called chemtrails, now getting widespread attention.
Well, they say the government is dumping chemicals on us to control or manipulate the weather.
And they say the unusual-looking jet trails in the sky are actually chemical-laden chemtrails.
People say the government is up there in airplanes spraying all kinds of chemicals to change or manipulate the weather, leaving what you see there, and they call that a chemtrail.
So what I look at there and I think are contrails, you're telling me are chemtrails?
Yes, that a contrail would be dissipated by now.
And it's interesting, Dale and Christina, this is of interest not just in this country, but European countries and frankly all over the world. A lot of folks interested.
They claim the American government, with the secret approval of the national government, is covertly using jet aircraft to spray population centres with aluminium, with barium, and with strontium so as to reduce people's immunity and reduce the global population.
That is not rain, that is not snow. Believe it or not, military aircraft flying through the region is dropping chaff.
small bits of aluminum. Sometimes it's made of plastic or even italicized paper products, but it's used as an anti-radar issue, and obviously they're up there practicing. Now, they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is.
What happens here, military jets, some come out of Key West Air Force Base, and they move up into the atmosphere, and they drop mile-large strips. Some could be a little wider, some are small glass fibers that are coated in aluminum. And what the Air Force does is they take their military jets and they dump these out of the aircraft, they fall into the atmosphere, and some take as much to a day to fall down.
This is inevitably military or something going on. The government, the Air Force, you see this kind of a pattern like this, you can rest assured there's something going on. They're actually little bitty magnetic and little bitty strips of, whether it's aluminum.
It's a nuisance to you and I to determine what's real and what's not, but it looks like it is a life-saving operation there for the military.
It is called geoengineering, fighting global warming by putting a chemical dust in the atmosphere and reflecting harmful radiation back into space.
We take geoengineering to mean deliberate, large-scale intervention in the Earth's system.
There are a variety of schemes that have been discussed for geoengineering. A classic example is injecting reflecting particles into Earth orbit.
Nevertheless, there might be some good reasons to think about aluminum. It turns out, first of all, there's been a lot of work on the environmental consequences of aluminum in the stratosphere. The big deal really is that aluminum has 4 times the volumetric rate of forcing for small particles as does sulfur. And that means you have 4 times less surface area for the same rate of forcing. And this is a much bigger deal. You have roughly 16 times less the coagulation rate. And that's the thing that really drives removal. So you could get away, we think, with much smaller mass fluxes.
So that's why we see things like in the use aircraft patent from '89, they talk about aluminum. And that's why we're seeing in the surface water samples aluminum. And here's David Keith saying that aluminum has 4 times the reflective volume surface area. So they'd like us to think that we're talking about sulfur, but here they slipped up and let it out that aluminum is 4 times better to achieving their ends, and it sounds like it's kind of the one they don't want us to know the effects of.
The little picture is from a nanofabrication study, which shows you can make very high quality, and do this in just a jet in a very simple way, make high quality aluminum particles just by spraying aluminum vapor out, which oxidizes. So it's certainly in principle possible to do that. There's a big literature that's already looked at that. And you could do that by either building new versions of these aircraft or even re-engineering existing aircraft. So there's some ideas of that. So you go to an engineering firm and you want this done. They don't say this is hard or unusual. They say, okay, yes, we could do it. Aerosol geoengineering looks like it is so cheap that the cost is basically not going to be an issue. That means that implementation decisions will be risk-to-risk decisions. The risk of doing it against the risk of not doing it. And it makes the problem of how we govern it fundamentally harder and different and novel. So I've told you that it's cheap to deliver materials to the stratosphere, and I'm convinced that's true. I don't think that will change. But I think the more we do research, the less easy this will look, the more complicated the environmental effects will look. And that's a good thing, because right now it looks too easy. So I think that if we do more research, we're likely to find out that it's harder and more complicated than we thought, and that the side effects are harder to manage. And that's a healthy outcome that will make it easier to do the management. Of course, the opposite reaction is possible. It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. Another reaction is to say, if these crazy scientists are so concerned about putting CO2 in the atmosphere, they want to think about these things, and that might actually mean we should be more serious about the risks of CO2 in the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids.
Numerous air quality studies, including from CARB, California Air Quality Resource Board, have named submicron-sized particulates as being particularly harmful for human respiration. Through all the discussions today, I have not heard any mention of this fallout, and has this been studied, and also the effects of a highly reactive metal like aluminum on toxifying soils and waters?
The question is, what would be the effects of these materials on human health if they came down into the stratosphere, in particular small particles and aluminum?
So the collaborators of mine working on the aerosol scheme are actually folks from Carnegie Mellon who focused on human health impacts. And while we haven't published it, that was the very first thing we did, was do the order of magnitude calculation in level pencil and paper, but with an expert on human health impacts about whether there could be an issue. And for aluminum or other particles, there are a lot of toxicological things that need to get looked at seriously. But if you're just thinking about the sheer number of particles and the human health impact of small particles, the answer is while we haven't published it, that was the first thing we looked at with some of the leading experts who do epidemiological research on human health impacts, and it's not even close to being an issue.
So 10 megatons of aluminum dumped into the atmosphere would have no human health impact.
So let me be more careful here. To separate out the toxicological, so the Illumina we've only begun to research and published nothing. Illumina we've only begun to research and published nothing.
Dane looked at him and he said, so you're telling me that spraying 10 to 20 megatons of aluminum, as you said, would have no human health effects? He took a deep breath and he swallowed and he said, let me be more careful here.
We haven't done anything serious on Illumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow we haven't looked at.
And that, for me, that was the whole main point of what is going to be coming out to the public. It's the damaging effects of aluminum that are being found around the world in massive amounts. Here's David Keith confronted on this very issue, and he looked, you know, at that point like they just let the cat out of the bag.
We haven't done anything serious on Illumina, and so there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow we haven't looked at.
They're proceeding because they have an agenda that's separate from trying to thwart this crisis of global warming. You know, there's obviously several other objectives, whether it's depopulation, control, weapons aspects, communications aspects, all kinds of things, you know, wild cards that we know nothing about. We don't really know, and I'm not going to attempt to speculate on exactly what the agendas are, but we can see clearly the agendas are not benefiting mankind. You know, it's benefiting the agenda of the elite.
One of the things that really shocked me was in one of the breakouts they had the benefits of these programs and then the risks. Now the benefits, the one thing that was stated was the just cooling the planet. You know, some of the risks were ozone depletion, droughts in Africa and Asia.
I got to tell you, I came away from this experience after listening to these scientists for 4 days of symposiums, really concerned because it's clear now that they are justifying, rationalizing, and looking to legitimize some really, really horrible impacts, further impacts on our environment. And they're basically formulating the sales strategy and the implementation and oversight strategy and the funding strategy.
After San Diego, I was shocked by the programs that had been proposed. I decided to write about it. That night when I finished, I sent the article to an online publication with my email address attached. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox was flooded with responses from around the world. Why? Because I had just broken a story on aluminum in geoengineering models, which I had no clue at the time that very few people knew about. Now this metal, aluminum, is being found in massive quantities way above normal levels all over in rain, in soil, and in snow. After that, the calls started pouring in from people who were desperate for someone to investigate. That was the fuel that started the film. Before we started filming, we had the opportunity to sit down with one of our favorite authors and documentarians, G. Edward Griffin, to find out what he knew about the subject. I'd like to talk for a minute about an issue that's getting more and more attention. That's the issue which scientifically is called stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, also called the chemtrail issue.
I'm very aware of the chemtrail versus contrail controversy. As far as I'm concerned, it's an open and shut case. I have been watching the development of jet travel from its very beginning. I used to live near the Los Angeles airport. Remember when the first jets came in and landed? Man, they made a big noise. We never heard a noise like that before. And we used to go down and sit at the end of the runway and watch these jets come in and take off because it was a novel experience. I've been watching jets all my life, and I know about jet contrails. I've watched them. They're vaporized moisture, ice crystals, and they get out there in the atmosphere, and then they effervesce and evaporate and then disappear, and you can see them. The plane moves along, and the little white trail follows right behind it, and usually about 10 or 20 lengths of the plane or thereabouts, and then it's gone. And you can still see them that way, by the way, once in a while. So there goes a contrail. These other things we're talking about are not at all the same phenomena at all. These planes go by, and they billow out this white smoke, and it covers the sky from horizon to horizon. It doesn't dissipate at all. And they crisscross each other, and you see this thing cover the sky and turn it milky, and then people start having trouble breathing, and then you hear stories about the aluminum and barium deposits that they're picking up and the residue. And you put it all together, and I don't see how anybody who's got their eyes open and their mind open can come to any other conclusion but that somebody is spending a lot of money and effort to spray the planet. The question is, why? I have my own theories, but I hope that there will be some good investigative reporters go out there and get us the answer. I know that whenever it's finally discovered, and it will be, the people who are doing it will undoubtedly say, oh, well, we did it for you folks. It's for the greater good of the greater number. It's for the society. It's probably to prevent global warming. Or maybe it's to inoculate people against some kind of a dreaded biological attack. We can't go around shooting everybody in the arm, but we can spray them and save their lives. You see how good we are? We're doing it for the benefit of society. I know they're going to, whatever it is, they're going to say it was for your good. The spraying appears to be mostly in NATO countries. I've seen it here in the United States. I've seen it in England. I've seen it in Scotland. I've seen it in Canada, and I've had reports from people who live in France. There's a grouping, there's a political grouping here of some sort. It's international in scope. It's not just an American phenomenon. It's international. And anybody that wants to investigate that, I think, has to take that fact into consideration. They're going to find a political grouping and a political motive here. But in my humble opinion, it's not in your good or mine at all. I don't know what it is, but we'll soon find out.
I saw the sky crisscross with chemtrails, and I can't remember if it was in L.A. or I was on the road, but I had looked up one day, and I thought, look at that. That's not the flight path, man. That was a grid, a regular grid over the city, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
Milky white clouds.
And, you know, it all seems very obvious, and now the evidence of what we have on the ground with the aluminum, the barium, strontium, and with what we see in the patents and what the geoengineers say are going to happen, I mean, for the everyday Joe, this is a slam dunk.
This is a very delicate moment for the powers that be, because they're taking a covered-up operation like the tropospheric aerosol program, or chemtrails, Project Icarus, whatever. It's had many names over the years. And they're making it overt into a geoengineering scientific shield to deflect sunlight because global warming's out of hand. So at this very moment, the belly of the beast is right above us with no armor. Whether people believe in chemtrails or not, the geoengineering should be scary enough. And when people learn about geoengineering, chemtrails will then become apparent because they're the same.
So you're talking about global conspiracy here.
Geoengineers propose doing this on a global level.
Off to Redding, California. Guess this is the second step after the AAAF meeting. We'll see what we find.
Right here in Northern California at Dane Wigington's house. He owns over 2,000 acres overlooking Lake Shasta. He told me about some of the challenges that they're having up here. Let's go and talk to Dane. We'll see, what's going on his property. We'll see what he's going through and also what action he's taking based on the test results that he has.
As you know, I have a background in the energy fields. I worked in the first solar plants in the continental U.S. in the early 80s. My home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine, so this is my background. My goal has been to alert the public there is a mountain of toxic material falling on us, period. Before about 5 years ago, our skies were typically blue, and now you see it's covered with lines and haze. And virtually nothing you see on the horizon, nothing you see in the sky above us is a natural cloud. I mean, it is virtually all the remnants of these aircraft lines that you see fanning out, spreading into clouds, artificial clouds. But the sky is a very dirty look to it. It's not the white cloud blue sky that we had only a few years ago, but it looks like there's some sort of massive industrial activity or forest fires burning over there, and we see that typically every night. You see even down to ground level, the clarity drops off significantly, and we don't see that except for the days when we have these long, lingering trails that spread and cover the whole sky, and on certain days you can see these trails actually dropping vertically like a veil. We assume the particulates are descending, and we have the tests to prove that we are being inundated with levels of aluminum and particulates that are literally tens of thousands of times what would already be considered high. So we're not talking about exposure to a slight percentage higher of these toxic materials. We're talking about quantities, for example, off the side of Mount Shasta. If you can pan back, that's a landmark in Northern California, considered to be a pristine water source. Aluminum or snow sample off the side of Mount Shasta tested 61,000 parts per billion.
This is just ordinary snow water, and people are drinking this stuff when they're hiking on the mountain. And remember, government action is required at 1,000. This is 61 times over the government limit, and our hikers are drinking this poisonous water on Mount Shasta Mountain itself. Barium, 83. Strontium, 383.
So this summer, the people climbing are drinking poison.
Basically. I certainly wouldn't want to drink 61,000 micrograms per liter of aluminum.
And again, we've already seen in 5 years soil pHs in this area that have escalated 10 to 12 times, and we can prove that conclusively. Well, this is not speculation. We can prove conclusively that these metals have been in the rain. We have duplicate samples.
When I started this garden back in about 2005 or so, the pH here was 5.5, 5.6.
This is the old soil survey of the county. You can look at the page right here. This is my soil right here. It's a Dietz 125, 126 here at my house. And here, the soil reaction pH should be between 4.5 and 6.0. And over there in the pure mud, it's even a little darker. It's 6.8 right there.
And what can this do to plant life and ecosystems?
Well, you haul one of these things out and you start looking at the little things that are crawling around the soil. A lot of times they aren't there anymore. The little soil arthropods that you can barely see on a microscope, you can actually see movement with this. Little tiny macroscopic, look like little moving pieces of dust. Those start to go away. They're not gone entirely, but they start to go away.
This is black oak acorns. You know, this is pieces of cedar wood. You know, come on, folks. This should be very acid, and I'm getting 10 times higher than expected. There's something really wrong here.
Well, you can see all those reports, lots of them.
Have over 20 reports here.
Well, at least 20. I'd say it'd be closer to 30.
All revealing dangerous amounts of aluminum and barium.
You know, the science is there that something funny is happening, and the naysayers say, well, so what? Isn't neutral good? Well, no, neutral's not good. Neutral is not good. If your soil is supposed to be 5.6, it should stay 5.6 if you want the forest to be healthy. And if you want to grow a good garden, you have to keep your pH around 6.0, 6.5.
Here's another test that's revealing 375,000 parts per million aluminum, barium at 3,090, and strontium at 345.
Yeah, that's from a lined pond.
With EPDM fish-safe pond liner. There is no chemicals, manufacturing materials at all in that pond liner that's available to the aquatic life. It's designed for that purpose. The well that feeds this pond has been tested and retested. ND, no detectable aluminum, 0. The only other place this pond can receive water is rainfall. We are located on a filtered, forested hilltop, miles and miles and miles away from any industry, highway, and so forth. After several heavy spray days, there was a film that we received form on the surface of the water, and we tested that crust, and it was aluminum and barium. That after a year and a half's accumulation had 375,000 parts per billion of aluminum in it. It's literally toxic. We can say conclusively that what we see in the sky matches expressly what's outlined in numerous patents, and the materials on the ground match those patents. This material was not there 5 years ago. It is a recent phenomenon in the quantities it's in. It has escalated in some cases 50,000% in 5 years in the case of aluminum. From our original baseline reading of 7 parts per billion, which was already high, it has escalated up to 50,000% in 5 years. So we've seen profound changes in that time.
Dr. Leonard Time, PhD in chemistry, I cross-checked with him, and he says the oxides of aluminum, barium, and strontium will drive your pH from an acid soil like this up into the neutral. There's no question about it.
And that's exactly
what you see happen.
Wow.
When you get to metals and biological systems, you're no longer talking about the bulk aluminum that people think about when they're drinking from soda pop cans and that. So once it gets to the aluminum oxide stage, it just forms a plaque within your arteries and shuts down life. When you take elements that normally aren't out in the environment and you start putting them in the environment, it raises some serious red flags. Aluminum is a very specific, nasty in biological systems. It takes that site and it never lets go, and it shuts down the site, and that's it. And so as you accumulate aluminum over time, it causes major neurological damage because it ends up as aluminum oxide that's essentially stuck in place and can't be flushed out by normal systems.
At the core of everyone's condition, there's always some level of toxins. And aluminum is known to have cancer-causing effects. The half-life is decades. I think that we should be working on taking more of these toxins out of our environment instead of adding more toxins in. It's very concerning that if we add more toxins to our environment, that will be increasing the rates and risks of cancers. Even one patient is not worth it. So sad that they would consider putting aluminum in our environment to affect something when they could be causing so much more damage.
Wherever the material is coming from, it is there. The amount of metal falling on us cannot be disputed. Absolutely, this is not speculation. The amount of metal in the last 4 years, as I said, have increased to a degree of thousands of times, and California Air Quality Resources Board has studied the aerosols from China. These metals are not amongst them. Mike, the reason I've chosen to focus so primarily on this issue is I feel all other issues are secondary. What could be a greater priority than not being able to walk out your door and take in a breath of air without sucking up heavy metals? If our land base is being poisoned, if our waters are being toxified, what will we have left to work with? Whatever we choose to focus our time and energy on, whatever our political beliefs, that this is a common ground for all of us. We must have air that we can breathe that's not full of toxic chemicals and metals. We must have water that's not completely laden with whatever is being emitted from these aircraft. And if people stopped to consider that the atmosphere is as thin as a layer of paint on a basketball, it is an extremely thin layer that allows life to exist on this planet, to simply treat it as a physics lab and experiment with it until it is broken beyond repair is folly of unbelievable proportion. And if people understood that this sort of experimentation not only is going on, but it has been going on for a very, very long time. Going back 50 years, there's been countless climate manipulation, weather modification programs that the vast majority of the public is completely unaware of. And if they think that this is not true, that certainly that somehow they would have known if it was occurring, I would ask them to look at things like Agent Orange and the things that governments do because they can, because there's no one to stop them. because they have these huge military machines that want to control everything. And in fact, the government's own document, perhaps you may have seen, it's available to any online, is called Owning the Weather, an express goal of our government, and not just our government.
He told the Associated Press that the American government has created weather tampering techniques so that the New World Order will be able to starve millions of Americans and control the rest.
There is weather control techniques. Number one, the entire patents on the equipment. Number two, Senator Claiborne Pell's complete statement and story of his own that not only does it exist, but that we even utilized it as far back as the Vietnam War.
My name is Karen Johnson. I served in the Arizona State Legislature for 12 years. I was in the House for 8 of those years and in the Senate for 4 of those years. When you see a plane fly overhead, there's a trail that leaves the end of that plane, and it goes from one horizon all the way to the other as the plane flies across, and it begins to filter out and cover more and more of the sky in kind of ripples. It widens out and fills the whole sky. I mean, how could anybody think that that was the case? And then to live and to be underneath that and know that whatever is in that is falling down upon you and upon your animals and upon the earth. And I mean, it's frightening to me. And if people don't start really waking up and facing the fact that we've got people that are doing terrible things to us, and we had better wake up and fight back now.
Aluminum is toxic, and we know that it's accumulative, and we know that we're getting more. So we're absorbing it in the air, we're drinking it in our water, so we are accumulating more. So the thought of more aluminum being dispersed in our environment in the way that you mentioned is very frightening to us and very disturbing to us. Those of us who have done any research on this are really quite concerned that we are ill-informed about this issue, and mostly that it's being done. Aluminum is toxic. We know that it is. We can debate as to the amount of toxicity that is going to be disturbing the body, but as far as really accepting the fact that it's accumulative, it's synergistic, then we have to conclude that it's not a good idea to put it in our atmosphere, especially when we know we're getting increased amounts, and especially since we know that the scientific communities around the world are pointing a finger at the heavy metal toxicities, at the toxicities that we're absorbing in the day-to-day food that we eat and the air that we breathe.
The concern is off the charts about why is this happening? Why is this being allowed to be sprayed continually all over the United States, all over the world? Who is paying for this? I mean, the incidence of Alzheimer's has just skyrocketed, which evidently has to do with an accumulation of aluminum in the brain cells. I mean, I think almost every family has been touched by a member as they get older having Alzheimer's. And it's a horrible disease. And to say that, well, this just came because people drank soda pop out of aluminum cans, you know, when my father passed away with Alzheimer's and he didn't ever drink soda pop, you know, that explanation doesn't ring true with me. And so I'm wondering, how much did this chemtrail spraying back in the Illinois area affect him?
Aluminum and fine metal is an accelerant.
A friend who's a firefighter up in Pine, Arizona for 20 or 30 years says that the wildfires now that they're fighting are way beyond anything they've seen before in intensity. And when you look at the air samples and you see the fine particles of aluminum, which is very flammable, and magnesium settling on the trees, this is causing unprecedented savage wildfire.
But if you look at this, you can see these are parts per million. They sent this to me, and I just found this to be extremely interesting because we should have like 2 parts per million of aluminum in our air. And this is saying that there's 39,000 parts of aluminum. That's astronomical. Barium is high. I mean, these are way off the charts. of what people should be breathing or what's coming down on them. And, you know, if people wonder why their health is deteriorating, why they're having to go to emergency rooms, why they can't breathe, you know, why they're getting Alzheimer's, this has been planned. We have elites, I don't know what you want to call them, one worlders, Illuminati, I don't know, whatever you want to call them. But with these people that don't care about the average person. They only care about themselves, their greed, their power, and if they eliminate, you know, 2/3, 3/4 of us from the planet, so much for the better for them, because then they don't have so many people to have to herd around and worry about. So this is a lot what this is about, and this is very, very alarming and scary. I mean, where is this stuff coming from, and why? Why is this kind of stuff being put out there? You know, I've heard different explanations about, oh, we need to cool the planet, all this and that. But if people are up there trying to cool the planet, why do they need all this kind of stuff in it? The explanations just never have really rang very true.
And as I'm setting up the equipment, she looked at me, she said, all these trees here are dying. And I said, what? She says, all these trees in here are dying. So I thought, well, I'm going to test for aluminum, because that's one of the key things in the programs that we're talking about, and titanium. And I took some of this bark sample and tested it, and it came back positive with aluminum and titanium. Then I started traveling around California, noticing the same thing. In Lake Tahoe, there was a lot of the same type of bark, all through Sacramento area and Davis. Just about everywhere I went, I was noticing this silver white bark. What I think is happening is these chemicals are getting down and destroying the roots. And then as they come up, they're going out into the bark.
Those two right there are the ones that are just, it just hurts so bad to see these two, because look how old and big they are. We probably lost 40 trees right here on our 10 acres. Every week, every other weekend, we'd see another tree that was beginning to die. And I mean, it's just so sad, we just cry. And to think that that might have something to do with it, along with their other explanations, would really, really frost me. Every time you lose a tree, you know, it's not good, it's just sad. And there's another one over here in this little group of trees here. Don't you feel better when you stand up and fight than if you crawl down in a little hole and go to sleep? You know, I mean, my gosh, people, your families are out there, children are out there, your grandchildren. I mean, you've got to do something to help.
What do you think would happen if everybody awakened to what was going on and what the plans were of geoengineers?
I think they'd have a revolution in Hawaii. If people really understood what was going on.
What's your concern for? I know that you love the land here. What's your concern about the chemtrails?
Well, that we won't be able to live here and grow our own food, and that our health is going to be compromised.
Do you think it already has been?
Yes. And the thing is that they're doing it every day here, every day. So it's hammering, micro doses every day. And then, of course, it's getting in the environment, and of course, it's weakening the plants. And it takes a couple years for this to actually weaken the plant. So we're asking for GMO taro. We're asking for GMO papaya, because we can't grow our natural seeds. We can't be sustainable. We can't truly, you know, be here as God created us to be.
Folks, these people are playing God. They are playing God. They're manipulating the weather, and they're spraying stuff into the sky. They are trying to geoengineer everything, including your plants and trees and your ocean. Well, tonight, we're just hoping that instead of not looking at it, you'll start looking into it, because I really believe from the bottom of my heart that we are in a real crisis. I really do. They are proposing dumping 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the upper atmosphere. What does aluminum do? It changes the pH of soils, which is toxic to plant life. Also, it's very toxic to human health. Are they doing it? Well, let me tell you about my experience and what we found. We have much evidence that not only suggests,
but I believe prove that they are happening.
This is being done over our farms and over our things. So basically they want to eliminate our ability to eat organic food, have clean water. So in some ways it sounds to me like, and you know, again, it's just a projection, but it sounds to me like this is control. How do we control the masses?
Anyone who looks up and sees the giant grids and the X's in the sky that weren't part of our existence until just a decade or two ago is somehow called a kook. And the people that are the best and biggest proponents for the revolution and for liberty, they don't want you to talk about it because you could discredit them.
It seems to be an industry that's being built up to milk the taxpayers by undergoing some kind of a giant global spraying program to make all kinds of money on the project, and they don't seem to care really what effect it has. They're not trying to experiment to see if humans can survive it or anything like that. They just want to get this stuff up. And then we discover, as we're going further down the line, that there are companies generating genetically modified organisms, seeds, modified seed crops they're being engineered to resist the aluminum in the soil. And a lot of crops won't grow in that. And so now, after they've messed up the soil, all the farmers were going to have to go back and buy seeds that have been genetically engineered to resist the aluminum that have been put into the soil. And all of a sudden, mankind is completely dependent upon these companies like Monsanto and other giant agricultural firms. You can't even grow natural seeds anymore. And we're looking at that. It's a shocking thing. I hope we don't find that that's true, but all the arrows right now are pointing in that direction.
If you're going to kill the planet and kill the population, do we need any other reason to be alarmed?
What in the world are they spraying? Thank God people are asking this question. That's all we want. We just want to be able to ask these questions. Our good friend G. Edward Griffin, all these years, Mike Murphy and Paul Wittenberg are doing this great effort with your help. This is a community effort to get people real information. What in the world are they spraying? Any final quick comments before we're out of time?
And my only final thought is that we asked the question, what in the world are they spraying? And we now know what it is. And folks, you're not going to like it.
I was in the council for about 25 years and also a period as the mayor. So from that moment on, 10 years ago, everything started to change. I started to get a picture of what is really going on. And it became crystal clear to me that we, humankind, have been manipulated and dominated and exploited for centuries. And this chemtrail phenomenon made me angry because I was so helpless. You can decide what food you're going to eat, whether you're going to smoke, what water you're going to drink, what kind of life you're going to lead, but not with this phenomenon. Then you are just a victim. It's only a game. And there have to be good guys, and there have to be bad guys.
The 3 days that we shared with them, my heart just dropped because it was such a beautiful way to live and such a peaceful way to live. I left thinking, what's this going to be like in 10 years? Is everything going to be killed off on the property? And if it is, how are they going to get their food source? Are they going to have to take a class, and get certified by company XYZ? And what are the requirements for that? And that really is the end of freedom. I'm concerned about that. I definitely, I really am. Yeah.
In the years that I have been a medical research journalist, I have looked at many things, and I found the same three issues in whatever I'm looking at. And that is that we are being dumbed down, we are being made sicker, and we are being made infertile.
Here I'm a university professor of Delft University of Technology.
Usually people are with their heads to the ground in their own two-dimensional space and they don't look up. But if you do, you see more and more spaces like this. And it worried me too. I have no explanations to our students about these phenomena.
And then I studied it myself and I found out that I couldn't give them the answers they wanted, because I think that the phenomenon is not natural. It's not natural what is happening, and the explanations that are given to us are not enough for me.
If you look at them from a scientific point of view, the first thing a scientist does is trying to explain something. Because I'm smart and my students are not as smart yet, so I have to give them answers to questions. But if you ask most scientists honestly, they cannot answer all your questions.
If people are using climate control over our heads, I want to know about it. I want to know the consequences, I want to know the health impacts, I want to know everything. I need, as a teacher in my university, to give answers to my students. And they have good questions. And I don't have the answers. And I want to know.
Excellent.
And we should discuss this.
Well, thank you very much. It's definitely an honor to be here in Belgium. The people who are in power control everything. They control the markets, they control us, and now they're even controlling the weather. And they can use that for warfare applications. The one thing that they cannot control is what God had originally made, and that's natural organic seeds. This is called the Hegelian dialect. It's called problem, reaction, solution. The problem here is massive amounts of aluminum, things starting to die. The solution is Company X that says, hey man, you're not getting yields on your crop. Everything's dying. But I got the solution. I got a seed that will grow in this environment. The only problem is now you have to start buying from me. We're a little concerned that maybe part of this agenda could be to kill off anything that's natural and organic and re-engineer it with aluminum-resistant GMO seeds.
Many may know we just got back from a week of filming in Hawaii, and it was an incredible trip. A big concern for the people there is they're beginning to see softening of the coconut trees. But their concern is that these programs may again be part of a broader agenda to destroy anything that's natural and organic, so that the corporate redesigned GMO foods might be the only thing, only source of food for people.
Jeremy, we had an idea. We know that you know the political system real well. Our idea was this. We have a ton of data and information that we've collected throughout our travels, and you know, we really think a good way to end the film would be addressing this to elected officials, some of the senators. So we were wondering this, if you might be able to come and kind of help us out and perhaps show us the way in how to get this done politically.
But it sounds like a really good idea, and I'm also going to get to in terms of researching who it is that we should really focus on talking to about this.
We took the data to Washington, D.C. There we presented our elected officials with the following letter. According to the 5th article of the Bill of Rights, amending the Constitution for the United States of America, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. But the daily spraying is depriving all persons living within the United States of life, health, liberty, and integrity of our common and private property without due process of law. As a representative of the people of the United States of America, we insist that you do everything in your power to protect us and immediately put a stop to geoengineering spraying at once. There exists no justification, legal or otherwise, to poison the planet and its inhabitants. My name's Mike Murphy. I'm a filmmaker in from Los Angeles. We're covering an issue called geoengineering. Okay, next guys. Senator, a quick question about the issue of geoengineering.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
And wondering if you were supportive of geoengineers' proposals of spraying 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere.
I should really get a briefing paper on it before I give it to Dave.
Oh, not a problem. Are you aware of the issue?
Not completely.
At all? Because, okay. Do you have a letter from constituents, and people have concerns?
Yeah,
We're making a documentary about the sea.
I don't know. You guys have credentials to be here?
Yes, we do. We pass through security as well.
Endowed by our Creator.
Please don't touch that.
Please don't touch me.
You're lying.
No, what did we lie? What did we lie about, sir?
No, we're not.
What are we lying about? Lying about what?
It's a little unusual, huh?
I haven't heard that.
Okay. You're not aware of it? And it appears that these programs have already been deployed.
You know, I had to look at that proposal, and so, you know, why don't you let me review it?
I can do that. Are you aware of?
Actually, I'm going to go.
Yeah. Just like
Let me go ahead and get that. I will take a look at this and I will act accordingly.
General, this program, this openly covert program of the aerosol spraying, stratospheric aerosol spraying, geoengineering, using tons of aluminum, spraying it up in the sky. I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay.
Commonly called chemtrails, sir.
When you were the head of NEMA, did you see the aerosol trails?
Hi, sir. And we're covering an issue called geoengineering, and wanted to know if you're supportive of geoengineers' proposals. Congressman? Hey, Congressman. I'm wondering if you're supportive of geoengineers' proposals, which is dumping 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum into the atmosphere. Pardon?
Okay.
You take your appointment to my office.
I'm not supportive of it. I haven't looked at it close, so I don't.
Congressman? Excuse me. Hi, I'm Mike Murphy from Los Angeles, covering an issue called geoengineering. These guys are running from the geoengineering issue. I wonder why.
I'd have to talk to my staff. I don't know what your details on that are.
Has anyone made you aware of the issue, or? Sir?
Did your committee talk about geoengineering last November? Are you in support of those proposals? I'd love to give you a paper.
Geoengineering? You know nothing about the geoengineering issue?
Never heard of it. They call it geoengineering, but...
yeah, I never heard of it. It's nothing I've ever heard anything about.
When we looked up in the air today, outside the steam stock and stuff going on.
Quickly, have you heard of geoengineering? No. The proposals to shoot 10 million tons of metals into the air. This committee, Science and Technology, covered it for the first time. No.
No, I've never heard of it.
So we were very concerned. We spoke with Congresswoman Watson's office, and her press secretary, Ms. White, was familiar with Representative Kucinich's Space Preservation Act, which mentioned chemtrails and the weaponization of the atmosphere in space, and then it was pressured to be taken off the bill.
Did you see the aerosol spraying going on today over the Capitol?
Congressman?
And when these people started talking about the need for UN Security Council oversight, a supranational environmental security enforcement with a strong mandate by the UN, you know, it really was clear that they're looking for a global power behind the manipulation of the environment.
Many people are deeply concerned about it because of the toxicity of aluminum, and it has been addressed to Congress in various committees. Would you take a look at a letter from some of your constituents addressing the concerns?
Excuse me.
Okay. Can I give you a letter from constituents? Are you aware of their proposals of dumping? Gotcha. Thanks.
Well, I'm not familiar with it, so I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. Well, geoengineers are proposing just that, dumping aluminum and barium into the atmosphere.
Why would they do that? Aluminum's a precious metal we can use.
Well, the stated goal is to actually cool the planet. However, there's a...
Sounds strange.
Right, exactly. So they're proposing dumping these metals into the air to block the sun, essentially. We're here to just find out what members of Congress are...
I hope we would have a strong hearing on that before we decide to do that.
I would hope so. And there's plenty of evidence that not only suggests that these programs have been deployed, because we're finding contamination of aluminum and barium on the rain, snow, and soil.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of Congress was running down the hallways to avoid answering any questions, looking for doors in the hallways. So apparently the war is against all of us, and we're all in a hostage crisis. People who took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution are not only know this is happening, are participating in this. And all of us have a duty to stand up and speak out about it. Why is the water being contaminated? Why is the soil being contaminated? Why are aluminum-related diseases going up? And it's affecting all of us, and thus we all have the duty to stand up and speak out and get educated and stop this. For our own sake, for our children's sake, it is a crucial moment in history right now. As human beings, we need to decide whether to live on our knees while being sprayed and poisoned every day, while being under a continual threat, or whether we are going to stand up and live as free human beings and seek truth, justice, peace, and freedom for all of God's children.
So as you can see, we're ending our film here in Washington, D.C. We've made many public officials aware of this. Most of them either denied any knowledge of this, or they simply were unwilling to address the situation with us. So as you can see right behind the White House, we do have aerosols behind us. The spraying has continued. What is the solution? Is the solution here in Washington, D.C.? Clearly, this is one of the solutions, but the solution is not only here, the solution is within you. This issue affects all of us so deeply. So you need to look inside. Please get active, get involved, start spreading the word with growing awareness. About 90% of the population, we believe, is unaware of this issue, which means 90% of the people who normally might do something if they knew are not doing anything because they are unaware. So please look into your heart, use whatever skill you have to get the word out. The future of humanity is dependent upon it.
Wszystko rozbija się o dwa poglądy na temat rządów. Ewolucja opiera się na opinii człowieka, stworzenie na prawach pochodzących od Stwórcy. On daje nam prawo mieć kościoły. On daje nam prawo mówić prawdę. Nasi ojcowie założyciele powiedzieli, że gdy na pewnym etapie dziejów ludzkości staje się konieczne, by jeden naród zniósł zakazy, które łączą go z innym, uznajemy za oczywiste prawdy, że wszyscy ludzie zostali stworzeni jako równi i zostali obdarzeni przez Stwórcę pewnymi prawami. Stale mówili o prawie narodu wynikającym z faktu stworzenia przez Boga. Ludzie, którzy wierzą, że zostali stworzeni, nie nadają się na niewolników. Wyrzucą herbatę do portu i rozpętają wielką wojnę. Ci, którzy chcą nowego porządku świata, mocno walczą, żeby w szkołach nie było nauki o stworzeniu. Bo szkoły, w których nauczanie oparte jest na ewolucji, mówią, że prawa pochodzą od rządu, nie od Boga. Ten człowiek powiedział: fundamentalistyczni rodzice nie mają prawa indoktrynować swoich dzieci. Przygotowujemy dzieci na rok 2000 i życie w globalnym społeczeństwie, a te dzieci nie będą pasować. Chcą przygotować nasze dzieci na nowy porządek świata. I słuchajcie, to działa. 75% dzieci z chrześcijańskich domów, które chodzą do świeckich szkół, traci wiarę po jednym roku nauki. Jest świetna książka pod tytułem Akta Meduzy autorstwa Craiga Robertsa o tym, jak rząd ukrywa różne rzeczy. Wiesz, ilu więźniów wojennych zostawiono po tym, jak walczyli w I wojnie światowej oraz z Japończykami i w Wietnamie? Ci więźniowie wojenni byli zmuszani do pracy w kopalniach w Związku Sowieckim i w Chinach. Po prostu przepadli w obozach pracy. Przywódcy w naszym rządzie wiedzieli o tym i powiedzieli: och, nie warto się w to mieszać, zostawmy to. Niektórzy do dziś żyją. Jeśli chcesz zrozumieć konspirację, jakiej szatan używa, by kontrolować świat, to jest wiele dobrych książek na ten temat. Jest kilka różnych grup, które w zadymionych pokojach próbują kontrolować świat. Jest komitet 300 żydowskich finansistów, mistrzów lóż, którzy rządzą światem zgodnie z protokołami Syjonu. Krytykują mnie za polecanie protokołów Syjonu. Książka została napisana tak, że gdyby została odkryta, wina spadłaby na Żydów, a tak naprawdę to bankierzy. Ale ciągle mówili i pisali, że Żydzi robią to, Żydzi robią tamto. Jak przeczytasz, to zobaczysz, to wszystko stało się prawdą w ostatnich 100 latach. Ludzie mówią, Howind to zła książka. Tak, ale ukazuje ich plany dla świata. Nie została napisana przez Żydów. Została napisana przez finansistów, lichwiarzy. Pokazuje ich plan rządzenia światem. Jest książka pod tytułem Komitet 300, ukazująca 300 najważniejszych osób, które tak naprawdę podejmują decyzje na tej planecie. Decydują, kiedy będzie wojna, kiedy będzie depresja i recesja. Wiele kryzysów, jakie mamy, tworzą ludzie świadomie, celowo. Czy widziałeś nagranie z samolotem wbijającym się w bliźniacze wieże? W internecie jest nagranie, na którym widać F-15, jak leci tuż za nim, nakierowując go na World Trade Center. Pokazane to jest w zwolnionym tempie. Ciekawe. Nie jestem pewien, co się tego dnia wydarzyło. Nie jestem pewien, czy ktokolwiek wie, ale oni wywołują kryzysy, żeby mogli osiągnąć swoje cele. Niektórzy chcą stworzyć nowy porządek świata, jeden światowy rząd i nie będą przeciwni zabiciu 3 czy 4 tysięcy ludzi, jeśli to pomoże. Jak na przykład wysadzenie Oklahoma City Building tylko żeby wyeliminować bojówki, które wymykają się spod kontroli, albo żeby wprowadzić więcej działań na rzecz bezpieczeństwa wewnętrznego. Gdy jestem w samolocie, to nie mogę nawet wywrócić kieszeni. Wojna domowa została wywołana celowo, żeby zbliżyć się do jednego światowego rządu. Tak samo pierwsza wojna światowa. Kryzys z 29 roku został wywołany celowo, żeby ludzie przyszli i dostali numer ubezpieczenia społecznego. To, nawiasem mówiąc, dobrowolny system. Kryzys kubański był celowy. Patrz na Rosjan, oni mają metodę. Mówią, zrobimy 2 kroki naprzód i 1 do tyłu i każdy uzna, że się wycofaliśmy. Chcieli mieć bazę wojskową na Kubie. Zbudowali więc bazę wojskową z pociskami. Kennedy narzekał na pociski. Mieliśmy w 62 kryzys kubański i wycofali pociski, tak uważamy, i opuścili bazę. 2 kroki do przodu, 1 do tyłu. Są bliżej celu. Robią to na całym świecie. Wybuch w Oklahoma City najwyraźniej dzieło terrorystów, ale to nie była zwykła bomba w ciężarówce. Za tym wybuchem kryje się o wiele więcej. Oto co powiedział generał wojsk lotniczych Ben Parton, odpowiedzialny za materiały wybuchowe. Wiem, jak wysadzane są budynki, zajmuję się tym od 30 lat. Bomba w ciężarówce nie wysadziła tego budynku. Bomby były w piwnicy wokół filarów. Ben Parton ma o tym nagranie wideo. Żeby uchwalić ustawy przeciw terroryzmowi przetrzymywane w Kongresie, myślę, że dlatego te budynki wysadzono. Bomba w liniach TWA miała usunąć ludzi, którzy mieli zeznawać przeciw Billowi Clintonowi. Na to wygląda. Było tak wiele spisków, czytam na ten temat, słucham o tych rzeczach, czytam wiele książek. Ale w sensie ogólnym to nie ma znaczenia. Myślę, że jako chrześcijanie musimy być mądrzy jak węże i nieszkodliwi jak gołębice. Chcę wam powiedzieć, jakie jest według mnie rozwiązanie, co powinniśmy robić w świetle faktu, że zbliża się nowy porządek świata i chrześcijanie nie będą mile widziani. Ten człowiek powiedział, jesteśmy u progu globalnej transformacji. Wystarczy odpowiednio poważny kryzys i kraje zaakceptują nowy porządek świata. Gdy w twoim mieście wybuchną bomby, ludzie zrezygnują ze swoich praw dla bezpieczeństwa. Zdaje się, że to Ben Franklin powiedział, ci, którzy zrezygnują ze swoich praw na rzecz bezpieczeństwa i pokoju, nie będą mieli ani pokoju, ani bezpieczeństwa. Biblia mówi, wiedz, że w dniach ostatnich nastaną niebezpieczne czasy. Przychodzi zły czas. Nie będę tu mówił, wszystko będzie cudowne, odczuwam, że coś dobrego niedługo ci się przydarzy. Odczuwam, że coś złego niedługo przydarzy się nam wszystkim. Przygotuj się. Mam 2 wnuków, będą kolejne. Nie cieszy mnie zły czas, jaki przychodzi, ale on przychodzi. Jak działają? Wymyślają jakąś wymówkę lub tworzą kryzys, by prezydent mógł ogłosić stan wojenny, który oczywiście znosi konstytucję. Prezydenci właściwie rządzą teraz przez rozporządzenia. Wydano ich 13 000. Abraham Lincoln wydał pierwsze w Ameryce. Nakazał, by 75 000 wojsk napadło na południe. To była wojna Lincolna, nie wojna domowa. To kolejna długa historia. Więc to, co robią ci bogaci kolesie, to dokładna analiza tego, co chcą osiągnąć. Jak uzyskać więcej kontroli nad światem. Następnie wywołują kryzys w kraju, by ludzie robili to, czego oni oczekują. Planują powstanie jednego światowego rządu. Prezydenci rządzą, wydając rozporządzenia i omijając zupełnie konstytucję. Można mówić o tych rozporządzeniach godzinami. Mam tu ich krótką listę. W sytuacji awaryjnej mają prawo przejąć wszystkie zapasy żywności i wszystkie pojazdy. Jeśli twój pojazd jest zarejestrowany, mogą przyjść i zabrać ci go. Przygotuj swój wóz. Mogą też wziąć wszystkich Amerykanów do pracy. Mogą przejąć wszystkie obiekty szkolnictwa, opieki zdrowotnej czy opieki społecznej. Przejąć wszystkie lotniska. Zarejestrować wszystkich mężczyzn i kobiety do poboru. Przejąć centra relokacji. Przejąć linie kolejowe, drogi wodne, obiekty magazynowe. Zajmie się tym Federalna Agencja Zarządzania Kryzysowego. Na tych ludzi trzeba uważać. Ich się obawiam. To oni będą wykonawcami. Żaden dyktator nie może tak naprawdę nic zrobić, jeśli ktoś inny tego nie wykona. Hitler nigdy nikogo nie zastrzelił. Robili to jego ludzie. 17 marca 2003 roku George Bush powiedział żołnierzom w Iraku, by nie słuchali, jeśli dostaną rozkaz użycia trującego gazu lub podpalenia szybów. Kto z was to słyszał? Powiedział, będziecie sądzeni jak zbrodniarze wojenni, jeśli zrobicie to po wygraniu wojny. A teraz słuchaj uważnie. Żołnierze, ilu was jest w wojsku? Złożyliście przysięgę bronić konstytucji przed wrogami w kraju i za granicą, zgadza się? A co jeśli wróg w kraju jest twoim szefem? Kto jest dla ciebie autorytetem? Kto jest twoim sojusznikiem? Czy to Bóg? To będzie trudny czas dla żołnierzy chrześcijan. Będą podejmować decyzje, by powstać i powiedzieć, zrobię to, co mówi Bóg. Czasem istnieje konflikt między władzami. Dzieci to wiedzą. One chcą, żeby mama mówiła jedno, a tata drugie. Chcą stworzyć konflikt w łańcuchu autorytetu. To Bóg ma ostateczny autorytet. Gdybym był żołnierzem, służyłbym swojemu krajowi i wykonywał rozkazy, chyba że padłby rozkaz nieposłuszeństwa wobec tego, co mówi Bóg. Wtedy trzeba postawić kreskę. Przykro mi, ale nie mogę tego zrobić, proszę pana, odmawiam. Powiesz, odeślą mnie na sąd wojskowy. Czy pieniądze są ważniejsze niż Boża wola? Do tego się to sprowadza. To jest zawsze właściwe. Nie wykonać złego rozkazu. Wielu z was złożyło przysięgę bronić konstytucji, więc to róbcie. Tyrani nic nie zrobią bez wykonawców. Hitler nigdy nikogo nie zastrzelił, kazał to robić ludziom i oni to robili dla niego. Kto robi to wszystko i dlaczego? I co my mamy z tym robić? Wielu ludzi jest zaangażowanych w plany tworzenia nowego porządku świata. Mamy ONZ, mamy Światową Radę Kościołów, mamy Radę Stosunków Zagranicznych. Dla zainteresowanych na mojej stronie jest wiele odnośników do książki na ten temat. Jest Komisja Trójstronna, Bilderbergersi, Międzynarodowy Fundusz Monetarny, Międzynarodowi Bankierzy, Klub Rzymski, komuniści, socjaliści, Narodowe Stowarzyszenie Oświatowe, NEA. Przy okazji, nauczycielu, jeśli uczysz w szkole publicznej, wypisz się z NEA. Przestań płacić im składki. Powinieneś przeczytać, co wspierają i za czym stoją. Jeśli jesteś chrześcijaninem i kochasz Boga i uczysz w szkole publicznej, wypisz się z NEA. Powiesz, ale nie będę mieć ubezpieczenia. Możesz się ubezpieczyć w innych miejscach. Po drugie, pieniądze nie decydują o tym, co jest właściwe, a co nie. Jeśli decydują, to masz problem. Rób to, co właściwe. Bóg zajmie się resztą. Odejdź z tego klubu. NOW, Narodowa Organizacja Kobiet. ACLU, Amerykańska Unia Swobód Obywatelskich. Loża masońska. Pewien człowiek w kościele powiedział mi, jestem w loży masońskiej od lat, nie widzę w tym nic złego. Odpowiedziałem, przeczytaj sobie książkę Masoneria ponad światem. Po prostu ją przeczytaj, a potem wróć i porozmawiamy. 2 tygodnie później przyszedł i powiedział, rezygnuję z loży i przekonałem swoich 4 braci, by też zrezygnowali. Większość ludzi w loży masońskiej, których znam, nie ma pojęcia, w czym tkwią. Nie zdają sobie sprawy, dopóki nie dojdą na szczyt, że to satanistyczna organizacja. Generał Pike powiedział: tłumowi musimy mówić, że czcimy Boga, ale to jest Bóg, którego się czci bez przesądów. Wielcy, suwerenni inspektorzy generalni, mówimy, żebyście mogli powtarzać to braciom 32, 31 i 30 stopnia. Religia masońska winna być przez wszystkich nas, wtajemniczonych wysokiego stopnia, utrzymywana w czystości lucyferskiej doktryny. Tak, Lucyfer jest Bogiem. Gdy mason dowie się, że kluczem do wojownika na bloku jest właściwe zastosowanie dynamo żywej mocy, pozna tajemnicę swojego rzemiosła. Gniewne siły Lucyfera są w jego ręku i zanim postawi krok do przodu, musi dowieść, że potrafi właściwie obchodzić się z tą siłą. Przeczytaj Szkarłat i Bestia, jeśli chcesz poznać dogłębnie lożę masońską, albo książkę Masoneria poza światłem. Biblia mówi, że mamy w ogóle nie przysięgać, tak? Czytałeś tekst składanej przez masonów przysięgi? Ten jest pierwszy z wielu. Brzmi tak: ja niniejszym przysięgam, że zawsze będę trzymał w tajemnicy i nigdy nie odkryję tajemnic wolnomularskich żadnej osobie. Jeśli to zrobię, godzę się, żeby moje gardło przecięto od ucha do ucha, mój język wyrwano z nasadą, żeby moje ciało zostało zakopane w piasku morza. Wyobrażasz sobie, żeby Jezus powiedział coś takiego? Powariowaliśmy? Biblia mówi: nie przysięgaj. Wyjdź z tego klubu, po prostu zrezygnuj. Przestań ich wspierać. Jeśli masz tyle wolnego czasu, zrób coś w kościele, zdobądź kogoś dla Chrystusa. Jezus powiedział: nie robię niczego w ukryciu. Dlaczego oni mają swoje tajemne kluby, tajemne uściski dłoni, tajemny sposób stania? Sędzio, kładą rękę w ten sposób. Jestem w tarapatach, ratuj, sędzio. Wiedzą, że sędzia prawdopodobnie też jest masonem. Słyszałem o niej wcześniej, ale nigdy jej nie widziałem. Podchodzą do drzwi w swojej świętej bieliźnie, na piersi symbole loży masońskiej i po jednym na udzie. Nie wolno im nigdy zdjąć wszystkich części bielizny naraz, bo mogą dopaść ich demony. Jak biorą prysznic, mają bieliznę na jednej nodze i myją połowę ciała. Potem przekładają na drugą nogę i biorą prysznic nad drugą stroną ciała. To głupota, nie żadna święta bielizna. Powinieneś wiedzieć, jak blisko szczytów w loży masońskiej był Joseph Smith. Mormoni i masoni są bardzo powiązani. 2 lutego, czyli 33 dzień roku, to pierwsze święto kościołów satanistycznych. W roku 1933 Roosevelt uchwalił ustawę o uprawnieniach wojennych, na mocy której całe prywatne złoto przeszło do rąk rządu. Rockefeller pomógł dojść do władzy Hitlerowi w 1933. Sfinansował mu to, bo potrzebowaliśmy kolejnej wojny, żeby Rockefeller mógł zarobić więcej pieniędzy. Ci ludzie zarabiają na wojnach.
One of the elements of where they want to take the world is a third world war, which they wish to involve Europe, the United States, and Canada, North America, and Russia and China. I was told by insiders in the 1990s in America that the plan was to lead to a conflict involving China. For this reason, in the 1800s, letters were written, and particularly one particular letter, between two high-level players in the secret society network, in which the 3 world wars were described of where they were going to go. And this letter included the detail of countries that would be involved and how it would be started. And it described the First World War with the Germans brought into conflict with the rest of Europe and America. It described the Second World War in the same terms and said it would lead to a Jewish state in Israel. And the Third World War would be triggered out of the Middle East, involving Israel as the trigger, and would bring about the final global conflict, which would lead to them being able to offer the solution to stop this ever happening again, which would be a world government and a single world army. And the idea of that is to say, if we have a single world army and we bring an end to national armies, then we can't ever again have a war. What they won't tell you is those that have manipulated the war will be the same people that offer the solution to the war, which is exactly the structure of control that they want. And I feel very strongly that Georgia, I'm not saying this war's going to happen tomorrow, but Georgia was a move on the chessboard in this direction. And I'll tell you a story that happened to me in England which relates to this. And it seems, you know, quite a minor story until it starts to play out. Last March 2008, I received a letter from a man in England who is what we call there, or called there, a traffic warden. And his job, they walk along the streets in a uniform, and they give out tickets to cars for illegal parking or whatever. You know, not many people like them for that reason, but they just do that job. And this traffic warden, he'd been a traffic warden for nearly 20 years, he wrote to me because he read my books, and he said, look, there's something I don't understand, and there's something that's really bewildering me. He said, I've been called in by my boss, and like my colleagues, he said, I've been given 3 cards, authorization cards. He said, one of the cards is to give me authorization to be a traffic warden. Okay. But the second card was what they call in Britain a pace card, and that carries the words that policemen have to say by law when they're arresting somebody. And the third card was the authorization of this man and his colleagues, traffic wardens, to go into private property without permission. So this man, who's a nice guy, he said to his boss, why do I need the statement you make to arrest people if you're a policeman, and why do I need an authorization to go into private property? And his boss said, look, I've been told to give them out, take them home, leave them until further notice. A few days later, him and a few other traffic wardens are outside the police station in this county, this town. And a policeman came out that this traffic warden had known a long time, hadn't seen for a while. And the policeman came over and made the small talk, and then he pulled his friend aside. He said, I want to talk to you. And he said to him 4 or 5 times in this conversation, you must not breathe a word about this. He said, I've got the job, he said, in this county, and there's someone like me in every other county of the United Kingdom, policeman, whose job it is to organize in preparation for a coming war. He said, we're preparing for this war well in advance. And he said, what's expected by the government is that when this war starts, there will be massive civil unrest on the streets of Britain and protest. He said, so what's happening is that when that war starts and the protests start, the civil unrest they're expecting, the military and ourselves, police officers, will be focusing on dealing with the civil unrest. And you, traffic wardens, private security guards and companies, closed-circuit television operators, and all these kind of people will be brought forward to do the jobs that police officers currently do while we're dealing with the civil unrest. Well, he sent me the cards, and I saw them to confirm they existed. A few days after he contacted me, the British government announced that they were going to redesignate and rename traffic wardens civil enforcement officers, and they were going to give them powers, some of the powers currently that the police have. 10 days ago, all these months later after this happened, 10 days ago, the government in Britain announced that they were introducing a new designation of authority called accredited persons. And these were security guards, private security firms, CCTV operators, etc., who were going to be given accredited person status and given powers that are currently the powers of the police. Now, why I tell this story is that everything that this police officer said was going to happen is happening or has happened. The only thing that remains is the war. And that fits with all these other different pieces of information that suggests that a major conflict is being orchestrated, which is designed to change the face of society, because there's nothing that changes society faster than a war.
So one of the agendas to bring this under greater control for them is to massively cull the population. They want to reduce the numbers. Now, if you want to remove lots of people, you can do it by injecting stuff into people's arms and they just keel over dead. But if you do that, and of course there is some of that goes on, but if you do that, all the other people lined up are going to say, excuse me, I ain't having whatever they've had. So you do it in a more subtle way, and you target the defense mechanism that everyone has called the immune system. For instance, people don't die of AIDS. They die of AIDS-related disease, which are diseases that the immune system, before it becomes shot, would have defended the body from. So all the time now we're having the immune system targeted, not least among children and young people, by vaccinations, by food additives and drink additives, etc. And if we just think about this, I mean, it's so blatant. If people just take a deep breath and take a step back and look at it with a bit of peripheral vision, we have a situation now, not just in America, but in Britain and the wider world, where between birth and about 2 years of age, we're having children be given 25 and rising different vaccinations and combinations of them, poured in all this, these chemical cocktails that destabilize the body, but more important than that, they have to be dealt with by a still developing immune system. So the immune system's still developing, it's still coming up to optimum efficiency, and suddenly this tidal wave of chemical concoctions is thrown at it and has to deal with it. As it's dealing with one, suddenly another one comes. 25 vaccinations over the first 2 years of life. It is, by any level of common sense, it's ludicrous, and it's meant to be ludicrous because it's targeting the immune systems of young children, which, because it's done at a developing time in the immune system, rewires it, destabilizes it, imbalances it for the rest of their lives. Those kids' immune system will never be as efficient as it would have been otherwise. My son, he's now 16, he's never had a vaccination. He's 6'5", incredibly healthy, never had a childhood disease. And his mates at school had childhood diseases. They had the whole blooming lot. And it has been planned for a very, very long time. You can pick up the confirmation of this in different points through history. To have a situation where you manipulate a mass global vaccination program to target the population at one time. We're seeing this now with the swine flu. I was told in 1997 by a CIA scientist who asked to meet me to get lots of information out that he couldn't, that in 1997, in the secret projects and the underground bases, they had microchips that were so small they could be inserted into people through a hypodermic needle in vaccination programs, and that was the plan. All these years later, of course, we now have a name for this technology. We call it nanotechnology. And he was saying that the plan was to use vaccination programs to insert these microchips. Then you look at other examples of this. For instance, in 1969, there was a doctor called Dr. Richard Day, who was head at the time of Planned Parenthood, which of course is a eugenics organization, which used to have eugenics in its name. And he told doctors in Philadelphia, or Pittsburgh, I think, Pittsburgh, in 1969, a series of things that he said were going to happen in the years to come to transform society and bring in this control system. And when you look at what he said, compared with what's happening now, it's extraordinarily accurate. And some of the areas he covered were that they were going to create new viruses in laboratories that were resistant to drugs, that they were going to use that to cull the population, that they were going to use vaccinations to cull the population, and also that they were going to change the way that healthcare treated old people so that more and more old people died and didn't go long into life, because from their extraordinarily sick perspective, old people are useless to them. And what we're looking at now very clearly is this attempt to play that card of mass global immunization with a excuse of this manufactured virus to get access to the bodies, the body computer systems, as I would say, of almost everyone on the planet. And they're not doing that because they want to protect people from anything. Crikey, the force that's saying be vaccinated is the force that created the virus which they're saying be vaccinated against. They're doing this to get access to the global population for very, very malevolent reasons. And what people need to realize is that these families do not come from the same perspective of life and respect that we do. They see humans like cattle, nothing more than cattle, and most humans see cattle. They therefore have no empathy with the consequences for the human population of their actions. So if people say, they'd never do that, mate, no, you'd never do that. They do it all the time. There are two classic techniques of mass mind manipulation and emotional manipulation. One of them I call problem reaction solution, the other one I call the totalitarian tiptoe. Problem reaction solution is devastating. It's been used for as long as you can chart back human history. And it goes like this. You want to change society or get people to accept something that in the normal course of events they wouldn't accept. So you don't say openly, this is what we're going to do and this is why we're going to do it. You play this technique, PRS, problem reaction solution. Stage one, you create a problem. It could be a manufactured virus in a laboratory. It could be an economic collapse. It could be a war. It could be a terrorist attack like 9/11. You then, through a pathetic, unquestioning media, which at ownership level and lower levels too you control, you get through the media, you tell the people the version of that problem that you want them to believe, i.e. swine flu broke out on a pig farm in Mexico. Yeah, flying pig farm. Thank you very much. That 9/11 was orchestrated by a guy with a beard in a cave in Afghanistan and all that stuff. You want a reaction at stage two from the public of outrage, of classically fear, and you want them to either say to the authorities, do something, or you want them to accept what the authorities suggest must be done. So you can go to stage three, which is to offer the solutions to the problems you have covertly created. And with the swine flu, and whenever I say swine flu, I mean swine flu in quote marks, because it's not swine flu, it's a combination of flus created in a laboratory. The swine flu scam is classic problem reaction solution. You create the virus, you put it out there, you say, oh, there's a problem, we must have a solution, which is the vaccine. And of course, you then find that the patents for the vaccine were applied for before the virus was put out, and people started to get the consequences of it. It's quite obviously a blatant scam, and through the mainstream media that doesn't connect these dots, which are there to be connected to anyone with a brain cell on active duty, the vast majority of the public go along with it. But what's really encouraging at this point where I speak is the number of people who are saying no to this, and their backbones need to stay stiff when the pressure comes on more and more to accept it, to say no and keep saying no, because this vaccination program is a key fundamental plank, whatever you want to call it, within this whole agenda. And if we can throw a spanner in the works of this and have vast numbers of people refuse the vaccine, it actually throws a spanner in the works of so much more that is due to come along afterwards. People have asked me over the years, what's planned? And I've said, read two books, George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. The latter was published in 1932, Orwell's book was in 1948. Because these two had access to the agenda through something called the Fabian Society, they weren't writing from imagination. They had an understanding of where this was supposed to go. And in Brave New World, you have Aldous Huxley describing a society in which children are disconnected from their parents, where they're bred in laboratories, and where drugs are used to get the children to, and as they become adults, the whole population, to love their servitude and not rebel against it. And we are now seeing quite blatantly the movement to remove children from their parents. It's been done through what I call the totalitarian tiptoe, step by step by step by step, where more and more parental rights are taken by the state, more and more and more, and where the school becomes ever more powerful in the control it has over the children. And now we're moving into areas that we have, staggeringly extreme as they may seem, they're no longer rare. This is commonplace, where in Britain, and I know from the research I've done for the book I'm writing at the moment, it's happening in America and elsewhere, where the authorities are taking children away from their families for the most extraordinary reasons. I'll give you an example, and like I say, this is not rare. We had a case in Britain recently where these parents spent £38,000 on fertility treatment to have a child. When the child was born, soon after the child came home from the hospital, a social worker came round, and the mother just joked that giving birth had ruined her figure. On the basis of that, the child was taken away. And we're seeing extraordinary examples of the so-called justification for taking children and the state taking control of them. And what then happens, and happens in this case, is the social services say to them, okay, we're taking your child away, we're going to give it to foster parents of our choice. Now you have a choice. You can either accept this, in which case you might see your children on, access time here and there, or you can challenge this decision, in which case you'll never see your children again. And the decisions are then made in secret family courts, which are not allowed to be reported by the media, where a single judge is making the decisions. And, if you describe this society to people a few years ago, you'd say, you've got to be talking about China, mate, ain't you? No, this is America, this is Britain, this is Europe, this is the so-called civilized world that it's happening in. And it's not the end of it, it's just the latest step in the tiptoe towards total state control of children. And that's what they want. And we either put a line in the sand now or regret it not too far in the future. What's being targeted is anything that holds people together. So the family unit is something that keeps people together. I'm not religious. I'm not into religion at all. But also religious structures are being targeted because they hold people together. What they want to do is break down all units that are in any way keeping people in some kind of organization, in some kind of mutual support system, because they want the state to be the total arbiter and dictator of human life, and therefore any structure that is a problem to that, they want to bring down. You see, if you have a family unit, then within that unit there can be diversity of the way children and the family see the world. This family unit, if they're together, there can be diversity in the way they see the world. And all these different diverse units of family create exactly that, diversity. What any dictatorship wants, no matter what it is uniformity. It doesn't want diversity of view, diversity of the way people see the world and see each other and all the rest of it. They want uniformity. You look at Soviet Union. What was it? It was a centralized dictatorship that took away all diversity. You look at any fascist dictatorship, centralized control, take away diversity. So any unit of mutual support, or whatever you want to call it, that offers the opportunity for diversity of debate, diversity of view, they want rid of, because they want the central point in the tyranny to dictate the version of life and self that everybody has. You know, it's always the case that tyrannies want uniformity. Look around the world. All diversity is being removed. And even the built environment. You go around the world now, you will go into these cities in previously diverse cultures, and if you didn't know, you could look out the hotel window and you wouldn't be able to tell where you are. This is the reason. Tyrannies want uniformity, and diversity, therefore, is under target and being targeted wherever you look. Eugenics has been with us for a very, very long time. At first, it was open. Of course, you had eugenics courts in America, etc., that were dictating that certain children or families, certain, according to the authorities, IQs, etc., disablement, they were to be stopped from having children. And then, of course, Britain, as usual, was massively involved in this. And the Rockefeller families, the Harrimans, the Rothschilds, all these people were involved in this. And then along came Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, which gave a very bad name to the term eugenics. So what did they do after that? They just changed the names from eugenics and hid behind front names like Planned Parenthood, etc. And they've gone on running this eugenics program ever since. And, you know, some very, very famous people through the years, including people involved in the Fabian Society, including Julian Huxley, who was the head of the British Eugenics Society. He was the brother of Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, very accurate book because he knew what the agenda was. And behind the facade of these families and these frontmen, they want to cull the population. Not only that, they want to manipulate the breeding of the population to remove what they perceive as the lower stock. And they did it before openly, tried to, and now they're doing it covertly. And their big kind of final card, if you like, is for a massive cull of the population, which will remove vast numbers of people on this planet. And that's where they're leading. And you know, through their access to mass vaccination programs, they're hoping to bring that about. You see scientists in a laboratory they want to work with material that's very dangerous. So the material will be in a big glass tank, and they will be outside the tank, and they'll put on those gloves, and they can work from outside the tank into the tank and do what they have to do. It's very, very similar in theme to what these Illuminati bloodlines have been bred for. They are bred to be the vehicles within visible light, this world that we experience, of these entities. And if you go back and you look at religious beliefs, etc., of the ancients and the accounts of the ancients, these entities, which go under different names, some people call them the serpent race, some people call them demonic. In the Islamic culture, they call them jinns, all different names, but the same entities. The bloodlines are interbreeding incessantly and have been right back to ancient Babylon and Sumer and Egypt, etc., and beyond, because they are holding a certain genetic code which allows the possession, another ancient common theme from as far back as you can track right to today, a genetic code which allows these entities to possess these particular bloodline families within the reality that we experience. And these families are therefore simply vehicles of these demonic entities. You research any of these families, be it the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Greenspan, Alan Greenspan, any of these people, you will go eventually into black magic, blood-drinking human sacrifice rituals where they make sacrifices to the gods. And these gods are these entities which feed off human energy and feed off human blood too. So people accept, yes, long ago people used to use human sacrifice to the gods, yes, and all the rest of it. And they think, oh no, we're kind of civilized now. Well, some of us are, but these bloodlines are not, and they're just continuing to do today covertly what they were openly doing in the past. And they are interacting with these entities all the time in their rituals. That's why they do all these rituals. That's why they drink the blood. And ultimately, they are possessed by these entities. And this brings about a simple situation. You've got the entities, let's call them demonic entities for want of a word. They're operating just outside of this visible light reality that we experience. They use the bloodline families as their vehicle to manipulate this reality. They take over their mental, what passes for their emotional processes, their physical processes. And what that means is, when these bloodline families go into positions of power, what we're actually doing is seeing these entities go into those positions of power. And so the secret society network is there to manipulate these bloodline families and their agents into the positions that dictate society and the direction it goes and all the rest of it. And because we can only decode their visible light level, we see the human level. We see people under different names called Rockefeller and Rothschild and Bush and Obama and all the rest of it. But if we could see beyond visible light just a little bit, and some people can, you would see overshadowing these people anything but a human entity. And it's these entities that have passed through what we call history, and they have been the cement, the guiding force that has brought this conspiracy through to the present day. Because people have asked me in the past, quite rightly, I understand it, why would someone give their life to this conspiracy, this global takeover, in 1500 or 1650 or 1820, when they knew they were never going to be around to actually see it happen, which is what they're trying to do now, playing the cards they're playing now? The answer to that is they were just vehicles. These entities are the common force passing through history, which has led this conspiracy to where it is today.
A dead body Zwłoki zmarłego muszą zostać pochowane lub poddane kremacji. I tak się dzieje około 2 miesięcy od momentu zgonu. Zauważyliśmy w ostatnim czasie wzrastającą liczbę pochówków bez żadnej specjalnej ceremonii.
Pracownicy krematorium nie wiedzą, czyje zwłoki konkretnie spalają. Znają tylko numer identyfikacyjny nieboszczyka. W wielu szwedzkich środowiskach pojawiają się głosy, jak najlepiej ekonomicznie wykorzystać fakt masowych kremacji.
Można dokonać wyboru, jak wykorzystać wytwarzaną tu energię. Czy do ogrzewania własnego budynku, jak dzieje się to tutaj, czy też, jak to ma miejsce w drugim naszym krematorium, poprzez włączenie go do systemu ogrzewania miasta, co jest oczywiście lepszym rozwiązaniem.
Samotność, która dotyka wielu Szwedów, jest wynikiem kryzysu rodziny. Brak ceremonii pogrzebowych jest tylko jednym z symptomów szerszego zjawiska, jakim jest zerwanie więzi uczuciowych i emocjonalnych w wielu rodzinach. W dużym stopniu jest to skutkiem długoletniej polityki rządzącej partii socjaldemokratycznej.
To, co jest bardzo charakterystyczne dla szwedzkich socjaldemokratów, to ich chęć posiadania pełnej kontroli nad społeczeństwem. Wszystkie pozarządowe instytucje, które w jakikolwiek sposób mogą zagrozić pełnej władzy rządu, a zwłaszcza partii socjaldemokratycznej, są postrzegane jako zagrożenie. A rodzina jest oczywiście jednym z największych zagrożeń dla władzy rządu, dlatego też socjaldemokraci próbują rozbić rodzinę, aby uczynić ją nieszkodliwą. Są tutaj politycy po jednej i po drugiej stronie spektrum politycznego, którzy występują przeciwko rodzinie. Parę lat temu pewien młody liberalny polityk powiedział, że rodziny powinny umrzeć. Powinno ogłosić się ich śmierć.
Tradycyjny obraz rodziny nie przystaje zupełnie do dzisiejszych czasów. Istnieje potrzeba, by dać możliwość zaistnienia nowym konfiguracjom rodzinnym. W naszej partii rozmawialiśmy o zalegalizowaniu związków poligamicznych jako akceptowalnej formy współżycia w społeczeństwie. Niektórzy ludzie żenią się 3 razy, co oznacza posiadanie wielu krewnych. Nie jestem w stanie powiedzieć ilu, ale może ich być rzeczywiście bardzo wielu. Wszyscy jesteśmy chyba świadomi tego, że jeśli matka czy ojciec wezmą kolejny ślub, to najwłaściwszymi słowami na ich określenie będą pojęcia macocha i ojczym. U każdego z nas jednak słowo macocha wywołuje niezbyt miłe skojarzenia. Myślę, że to z powodu bajki o Kopciuszku, która to historia nie jest szczególnie miła. Sądzę więc, że najlepszym rozwiązaniem, nawet jeśli nie uważamy plastiku za coś miłego, jest używanie, tak jak dzieje się to powszechnie u nas, nowego określenia plastikowi rodzice. Moja rodzina jest wymieszana jak jajecznica. Moja siostra, ja mam 2 siostry, oczywiście i mamy tego samego ojca. One mają jeszcze brata, który jest dzieckiem ich matki. A potem moja mama, ona jest matką mojego brata, który jest moim rodzeństwem. A były mąż mojej mamy, ojciec mojego brata, ma 2 dzieci ze swoją nową żoną, ale jego nowa żona ma jeszcze 2 dzieci z poprzedniego małżeństwa, tak, że w sumie to on ma 5 dzieci, a moja mama ma 4 dzieci. Mój tata ma również 4, a jego była żona ma 3 dzieci. Ja myślę, że to świetne. Właściwie myślę, że to dobre i wspaniałe, że dzieci teraz mogą mieć tak wielu rodziców wokół siebie. I myślę, że to bardzo smutne, jeśli dziecko musi spędzić całe swoje życie tylko z jednym rodzicem.
Od 1979 roku w Szwecji obowiązuje całkowity zakaz wymierzania dzieciom kar cielesnych. Rodzice nie mogą dziecku dać klapsa, pociągnąć za ucho czy nakrzyczeć na nie. Już w przedszkolach dzieci są szczegółowo informowane o swoich prawach i zachęcane do zgłaszania na policję tego typu przypadków.
Ja przypominam sobie, jak moja córka już w przedszkolu dowiedziała się właśnie o tym, że dzieci bić nie wolno i kiedyś przyszła właśnie z przedszkola i powiedziała mi w drzwiach, że mamusiu, jeżeli dasz mi klapsa, to ja mogę zadzwonić na policję i zameldować cię na policję. I dzieci z tego prawa korzystają.
Z władzą rodzicielską jest tutaj pewien problem. Jeżeli porównać ustawodawstwo szwedzkie i powiedzmy sobie europejskie, to rzeczywiście jest tak, że w momencie, kiedy następuje konflikt, powiedzmy, między interesem dziecka i interesem rodziców z punktu widzenia ustawy, to wtedy państwo przejmuje jak gdyby punkt widzenia dziecka. I tutaj powiedziałbym, że niedoceniona jest rola rodziny w tym sensie, że zbyt lekkomyślnie przyjmuje się czasami, że społeczeństwo potrafi się tym dzieckiem zaopiekować, wychować je i tak dalej. Były wypadki pochopnego odbierania rodzicom dzieci, które to potem dzieci lądowały w jakichś rodzinach zastępczych na pół roku, w następnej rodzinie zastępczej na pół roku i kończyło się, że one w końcu były bezdomne.
To była dziewczynka, która miała mniej więcej 12-13 lat, ona była nastolatką. No i zdenerwowała się na swojego ojczyma, który powiedział, że niestety trzeba uśpić kocięta, które ona bardzo chciała zachować. No i w związku z tym zgłosiła do socjalu najpierw i na policję, że jest molestowana seksualnie przez niego. Poinstruowała również swoją młodszą siostrzyczkę, która miała 3 latka wtedy, żeby mówiła, trzeba, żeby poprzeć jej zeznania. To małe dziecko miało być świadkiem. No i na tej podstawie ojciec został zatrzymany i bardzo szybko skazany na wiele lat więzienia. Po czym po 3 miesiącach ona jednak doszła do wniosku, że postąpiła niesłusznie i próbowała jakby odkręcić te swoje zeznania i uwolnić tego swojego ojczyma. No, ale niestety to się nie dało, dlatego że ta maszyna socjalno-prawna, jak już ruszy w ruch, to bardzo trudno ją powstrzymać. Nikt jej nie słuchał. Wszyscy uważali, że ofiary incestu bardzo często wycofują swoje zeznania i że to jest właśnie ten przypadek. I doszło do tego wręcz, że ona napisała już w ostatecznej instancji, już nie wiedząc co ma zrobić, napisała list do prokuratora generalnego Szwecji, gdzie opisała całą tą historię i napisała, że ojciec jest niewinny, że ona to wszystko wymyśliła, że niczego takiego nie było, że to w ogóle nie miało miejsca. Ale prokurator też nie wziął tego pod uwagę. No i też podtrzymał właśnie tę wersję, że to jest przypuszczalnie ten wypadek, kiedy ofiara incestu wycofuje swoje zeznania. Także w sumie takich przypadków jest wiele. Nie ma pojęcia władzy rodzicielskiej, zarówno w sensie prawnym, jak i w sensie obyczajowym. Jest pojęcie opieki i odpowiedzialności nad dzieckiem i odpowiedzialność za dziecko ponoszą przede wszystkim rodzice, ale też ponosi całe społeczeństwo. I w związku z tym społeczeństwo ma sankcje do tego, żeby wkraczać w wychowanie dziecka, ponieważ jest odpowiedzialne za dziecko.
Czasem państwo może to zrobić z bardzo błahych powodów. Rok czy 2 lata temu miał miejsce przypadek rodziców, którym odebrano dziecko pod zarzutem, że są opóźnieni umysłowo. Jak mawiali o nich niektórzy ludzie. Później okazało się, że nie byli oni w stanie odpowiedzieć na pytania zadane im podczas testu. Na przykład, kto jest prezydentem Chin, czy coś w tym rodzaju.
Marianna Zikström pozbawiona została praw rodzicielskich, gdyż stwierdzono, że jest zbyt nadopiekuńcza wobec swego chorego na epilepsję syna.
Daniela umieszczono w rodzinie zastępczej, która miała doświadczenie tylko z osobami uzależnionymi. Sami mieli przeszłość tego typu, że się leczyli z uzależnienia od narkotyków. Daniel czuł się tam coraz gorzej. Jego stan był coraz gorszy. Rodzice zastępczy nie byli w stanie wywiązać się z obowiązków w kontaktach ze służbą zdrowia, jak też wydawać mu lekarstw i opiekować się nim, ponieważ Daniel był ciężko chory. Syn miał coraz poważniejsze ataki choroby. Zrozumiałam, że źle się dzieje i odwoływałam się do różnych nadrzędnych instancji, ale zawsze było tak, że ignorowano moje krytyki i prośby o pomoc. Kiedy ten dom zastępczy został rozwiązany, Daniela przeniesiono do młodego człowieka, który sam niedawno był leczony z powodu alkoholizmu. Miał się samotnie opiekować moim synem. I ten człowiek nie dostał żadnej informacji, jak należy opiekować się kimś, kto jest chory na epilepsję. Daniel napisał do mnie około 40 listów. Mamo, pomóż mi. Pomóż mi. Ja się bardzo źle w tej rodzinie czuję. To są gangsterzy. Oczywiście rozmawiałam z Urzędem Nadzoru Socjalnego, ale nikt się tym nie przejmował. Nikt nie reagował. W tym okresie nie widziałam Daniela przez 5 miesięcy. Próbowałam się odwołać od zakazu jakichkolwiek kontaktów z nim. Ale on w tym czasie zmarł.
Marianna Zikström wytoczyła proces państwu szwedzkiemu. Przegrała jednak we wszystkich instancjach. Zasądzono od niej zwrot kosztów sądowych w wysokości 1,5 miliona koron.
Następuje jak gdyby upadek wiary w rodzinę, ale że będzie też powrót do tego, dlatego że okazuje się, że ten model niezupełnie funkcjonuje. Koniec końców to zdarza się, że matki rzucają się pod pociąg, żeby uratować swoje dziecko, natomiast nie było przypadku, żeby jakaś komisja społeczna rzuciła się pod pociąg.
Kiedy w 1995 roku zalegalizowano zawieranie przez homoseksualistów związków cywilnych, parlament zadecydował, że będą mogli oni zawierać jedynie małżeństwa cywilne, ale nie będą mogli zawierać związków w kościele. A ponieważ w Szwecji większość ludzi bierze ślub w kościele, homoseksualiści też chcieli mieć taką możliwość. Spotykałem więc wiele par gejowskich, które prosiły mnie o udzielenie im ślubu w kościele. Kiedy pojawiło się nowe prawo w 1995 roku, biskup powiedział, że jeśli para homoseksualistów przychodzi do kościoła i mają zawarty związek cywilny, a chcą ceremonii pobłogosławiania ich związku, to ksiądz powinien wówczas pobłogosławić ich bez świadków i odmówić jedynie modlitwę. Ale oczywiście nie tego chcieli homoseksualiści. Oni chcieli całej ceremonii w kościele, chcieli Mendelssohna.
Yeah, Mendelssohn, yeah.
Oczywiście jest to wielka zmiana tradycji. To wymaga zmiany mentalności. Kościół i prawie wszyscy ludzie mieli wiele wątpliwości dotyczących związków homoseksualnych, a jeśli chcesz zmienić sposób pojmowania czegoś przez ludzi i przez Kościół, to na to potrzeba dużo czasu. Jest to zmiana, która wymaga jeszcze kilku kroków. W naszym Kościele akceptujemy, co jak myślę jest bardzo dobre, legalny w Szwecji cywilny związek homoseksualistów i od 10 lat błogosławimy takie związki w kościołach. Utrzymuję kontakt z 50 czy 60 księżmi gejami czy lesbijkami, których poznałem.
Żyję dziś z inną kobietą. Mieszkamy razem od paru lat. Ona też jest pastorką. Żyjemy w związku cywilnym, który został pobłogosławiony przez pastora podczas nabożeństwa w kościele. Dla mnie prawdziwym błogosławieństwem jest to, że możemy żyć razem.
Jednym z najcudowniejszych wydarzeń, jakie miały miejsce w kościele ostatnich lat, była wystawa fotograficzna Ecce Homo. To było w 1998 roku, kiedy w Szwecji odbywała się Europejska Parada Gejów. Wówczas fotograf Elisabeth Olsson, moja droga przyjaciółka, wystawiła 12 portretów Jezusa i apostołów jako homoseksualistów. Ta wystawa była bardzo ukochana w Szwecji. Oczywiście przede wszystkim wśród nas, gejów. Jednym z miejsc, gdzie była pokazywana ta wystawa, była katedra. Arcybiskup powiedział, że to naprawdę dobra rzecz, że wystawa została tam pokazana. Byli jednak ludzie, którzy nie lubią gejów. Są nawet tacy chrześcijanie w szwedzkim kościele luterańskim i w kościele katolickim w Szwecji, którzy nie lubią homoseksualistów. Podobnie jak są też ludzie, którzy są antysemitami. I oczywiście tym, którzy przejawiają agresję wobec tych mniejszości, nie spodobało się portretowanie Jezusa z tymi mniejszościami.
Jeśli chodzi o przemoc w rodzinie w związkach lesbijskich czy gejowskich, to myślę, że najtrudniejszą sprawą jest to, że ludziom nie przychodzi do głowy, że kobiety mogą bić się nawzajem. Kobiety nie są bowiem agresywne. Myślę też, że jednym z problemów, jeśli chodzi o związki gejowskie, jest to, że jeśli widzisz mężczyznę przychodzącego do pracy, a wiesz, że żyje on w związku z innym mężczyzną i przychodzi do pracy posiniaczony, czy naprawdę pomyślisz, że jest on ofiarą przemocy w rodzinie? Problem pojawia się wówczas, kiedy geje i lesbijki próbują szukać pomocy. W Szwecji mamy małe grupy pomocy, do których możesz zadzwonić z problemem, ale kobiety, które tam pracują, również nie są świadome faktu, że lesbijki mogą być ofiarami przemocy domowej, czy też mogą być sprawczyniami maltretowania. W Szwecji bardzo mało adoptowanych jest dzieci szwedzkich. Adopcja w Szwecji to przede wszystkim adopcja międzynarodowa. Nie wydaje mi się jednak, żeby był taki kraj na świecie, który zgodziłby się wysyłać dzieci do adopcji w Szwecji, gdyby wiedziano, że mają trafić do pary homoseksualistów.
Jednym z wydarzeń, które wstrząsnęły ostatnio Szwecją, było kazanie zielonoświątkowego pastora Greena. W czasie homilii w kościele potępił on związki homoseksualne, nazywając je grzesznymi.
Moje kazanie oparte było na Biblii. Cytowałem dokładnie odnośne fragmenty Pisma Świętego i można powiedzieć, że było to bardziej studium biblijne niż homilia. Przeanalizowałem wszystkie fragmenty na temat homoseksualizmu, które są w Starym Testamencie, a potem w Nowym Testamencie. Tak więc każde twierdzenie było solidnie podbudowane konkretnymi cytatami z Pisma Świętego. Biblia bardzo wyraźnie określa homoseksualizm jako grzech.
Biblia nie zstąpiła do nas z nieba. Biblia sama w sobie nie jest objawieniem Bożym. Biblia nie odpowiada na wszystkie nasze pytania, ponieważ pytania, które nurtowały ludzi w czasach, kiedy Biblia została napisana, te pytania nie są naszymi pytaniami.
Sąd pierwszej instancji za krytykowanie mniejszości seksualnej skazał pastora Greena na miesiąc więzienia. Sąd drugiej instancji uniewinnił go. Obecnie w jego sprawie toczy się postępowanie przed Sądem Najwyższym Szwecji.
Myślę, że lepszą karą byłoby, gdyby sąd zdecydował się wysłać go do obozu koncentracyjnego, w którym byli zamykani geje w czasach hitlerowskich. To nauczyłoby go, jakie są konsekwencje nienawiści do homoseksualistów. Sąd uwolnił Greena od zarzutów. Myślę, że to wstyd dla sądu. To niedouczony sąd, który nie rozumie, czym jest zbrodnia nienawiści. Widzimy to w Afryce, widzimy na Bałkanach, widzieliśmy w Polsce, widzieliśmy w Niemczech. To jest pierwszy krok, kiedy chcesz obudzić nienawiść przeciw określonej grupie. Od sierpnia zeszłego roku 6-krotnie grożono mi śmiercią. Później dostawałem również listy z pogróżkami. Były też anonimowe telefony. Ich autorzy radzili mi, bym się nie wypowiadał na temat homoseksualizmu, bo im się nie podoba, że się tym zajmuję i mogę być za to zamordowany.
Was rounded up at Rex 84 FEMA camps constructed throughout the USA. 6. The possibility of retaliation against members of Congress for the collapses. 7. The location
Powracamy do rozpatrzenia punktu 1. porządku dziennego sprawozdanie Komisji Spraw Wewnętrznych o rządowym projekcie ustawy o udziale zagranicznych funkcjonariuszy lub pracowników we wspólnych operacjach lub wspólnych działaniach ratowniczych na terytorium Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej. Sejm wysłuchał sprawozdania komisji przedstawionego przez pana posła Piotra van der Kogena oraz przeprowadził dyskusję. W dyskusji zgłoszono wniosek o odrzucenie projektu ustawy w całości. Sejm podjął decyzję o nieodsyłaniu projektu ustawy ponownie do komisji. Przystępujemy do trzeciego czytania. Komisja wnosi o uchwalenie projektu ustawy zawartego w sprawozdaniu w druku nr 1932. W pierwszej kolejności pod głosowanie poddam zgłoszony w dyskusji wniosek o odrzucenie projektu ustawy w całości. Przyjęcie tego wniosku spowoduje bezprzedmiotowość propozycji komisji. Bardzo proszę o zabranie głosu pana posła Jarosława Zielińskiego. Określam czas na zadanie pytania na 1 minutę.
Pani Marszałek, Wysoki Sejmie, chcę skierować pytanie do pana premiera. Po co ta ustawa, bardzo trafnie nazwana przez opinię publiczną ustawą o bratniej pomocy? Do czego potrzebne są rządowi uzbrojone posiłki z obcych państw? W ten sposób rząd przyznaje się, że nie jest w stanie zapewnić bezpieczeństwa swoim obywatelom. Ale nie tylko o walkę z przestępczością i nie tylko o działania ratownicze tutaj chodzi. Rząd wyraźnie boi się imprez masowych i demokratycznych zgromadzeń publicznych, boi się Polaków i gotowy jest dla utrzymania się przy władzy sprowadzać do Polski obce siły i rezygnować z suwerenności państwa. Niechciana władza czuje się zagrożona i stąd to wszystko. Szanowni Państwo, zanim wszyscy podniesiemy rękę i przyciśniemy przycisk, warto się zastanowić nad skutkami tej ustawy na przyszłość. Apeluję, odrzućmy ustawę o bratniej pomocy w tym głosowaniu.
Dziękuję bardzo. Przystępujemy zatem do głosowania. Kto z pań i panów posłów jest za przyjęciem wniosku o odrzucenie projektu ustawy w całości, zechce podnieść rękę i nacisnąć przycisk. Dziękuję. Kto jest przeciw? Dziękuję. Kto się wstrzymał? Dziękuję. Głosowało 411 posłów. Za wnioskiem zagłosowało 138 posłów. Przeciwnego zdania było 273 posłów. Nie było głosów wstrzymujących. Stwierdzam, że Sejm wniosek odrzucił.